Chapter 709. If it weren't for the surrounding cultivators who were as strong as Moling Takshu, Hu Mainyang would have doubted if the Red Dust Heart Sutra was really as powerful as the ancestral master said. This was just the effect of the Red Dust Heart Sutra's aura. Even the powerful Moling Takshu was affected, which undoubtedly explained how terrifying the Red Dust Heart Sutra was. However, Chen Hao, who bore the brunt of it, was not lost. The only explanation was that Chen Hao's will and state of mind far exceeded his own realm. This made Hu Mainyang feel a great threat. Previously, she didn't put Chen Hao in her eyes at all. Although she sensed that Chen Hao was not simple and might not be inferior to Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, she didn't expect him to be strong to this extent. Of course, even if he was stronger than Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, a cultivator without any powerful background would not enter her eyes. As the saintess of the Misty Rain House, she clearly knew what her mission was. The people she came in contact with were all outstanding young talents. Each of them was a monstrous genius of the younger generation. At the same time, each of them also had a powerful background. This was the reason why the Misty Rain House could become a top force in the vast universe galaxy. Although it was not the top 10 forces in the vast universe galaxy, no force dared to provoke it. She was confident that she could restore the Misty Rain House and even surpass the glory of the founding ancestral master, surpassing the top 10 sects. This was the ambition under her charming appearance. It was also the reason why she completely ignored Chen Hao in the beginning. However, Chen Hao suddenly displayed arrogance, coldness, madness, and strength. She couldn't help but pay attention to him. Ambushing and killing Bai Yen was already against universal condemnation and couldn't be measured by common sense. Killing Chen Hao with a flying knife was even more insolent. If that was all, Hu Mainyang might have bided her time and relied on her valiant strength to negotiate with Chen Hao in exchange for the Tao manifestation Immortal Fruit Core. She wouldn't have stood out forcefully because it didn't conform to the Misty Rain House's smooth and slick style. However, Chen Hao actually forced Moling Takshu to leave behind all her Dharma treasures and then scram. What kind of concept was this? Such a domineering and insufferably arrogant existence made Hu Mainyang feel a sense of sympathy. She was certain that even if Chen Hao did not dare to make a move against her this time, he would probably still take it to heart because of her previous disdain for him. To be exact, it was as if she had disregarded air. This was the common characteristic of all geniuses. In other words, they were unyielding. Therefore, she wanted to conquer. However, in the beginning, she had only relied on her natural charm, peerless appearance, and the natural charm of the secular Heart Sutra to subdue Chen Hao with her peerless demeanor. Unfortunately, when she said, on account of Mainyang's face, even though Chen Hao didn't say anything, she saw disdain and contempt in Chen Hao's eyes. This was the reason why she didn't hesitate to go against the Misty Rain Pavilion's principle of doing things and forcefully utilize the secular Heart Sutra to confuse and deter Chen Hao. Otherwise, it would be utterly impossible for her to peacefully obtain the Tao manifestation Immortal Fruit Core from Chen Hao. Moreover, it would leave behind latent dangers. Unfortunately, she'd utilized the secular Heart Sutra with all her might, yet she was actually unable to take Chen Hao down, and this was what truly horrified her. Then what was there to hesitate about? Kill. Die. Hu Mainyang spoke in a light voice. Brother Moling, what are you waiting for? It was extremely sudden, and it instantly caused Moling Takshu to sober up. He shouted loudly and charged forward with his sword raised. This rumble. Chen Shui, who'd already sobered up and was ready for battle since a long time ago, and Long Ting, who'd been forcefully awoken by Chen Shui, suddenly shot out at this moment. Chen Shui had become one with her sword, causing Destruction Sword insight to surge like a river, and the direction she pointed with her sword was even swift and fierce. Shockingly, she'd executed the solitary sword technique that Chen Hao had passed down to her a long time ago. She didn't use any moves until she found a flaw. The solitary sword technique was the only ultimate technique that Chen Shui hadn't abandoned along with the advancement of her cultivation. Because no matter if it was an ultimate technique or an ultimate technique that was condensed into profound talisman markings, it was impossible to achieve perfection in the absolute sense. On the other hand, even though the solitary sword technique was named after the sword, it surpassed the sword. Its true essence was to see through falsehood, find the flaw, and destroy it with no moves. It could be said that this was a type of sublimation of combat principles, and since she'd started cultivating it until now, it had already fused into Qin Shui's instinctive consciousness. However, after her cultivation advanced, it wouldn't be displayed on the surface of her moves. At this moment, Qin Shui had finally displayed her sword once more under the 9 seals of immortality. It was swift, ruthless, crafty, swift, fierce, and traceless. It was clearly not strong, yet it caused the surrounding cultivators who'd recovered from Moling Takshu's shout to instinctively feel their hair stand on end. At the same time, what was even more shocking was not Qin Shui, but Long Ting. The instant Long Ting's seemingly graceful and delicate body erupted, she directly stomped on the incomparably hard rocky ground, causing rubble to swirl in the air. What was even more terrifying was that the majestic blood chi that Long Ting released in that instant was actually as heavy as a mountain. Her originally snowy skin had turned golden yellow. She was completely unarmed, but the speed, pressure, and the fist that instantly shot toward Moling Takshu like a cannonball was so powerful that it seemed to be able to shatter the void. She directly inserted herself between Moling Takshu and Qin Hao. At this moment, everyone was stupefied, especially those cultivators who'd seen Qin Hao and the others in the previous 2 forbidden zones. They simply didn't dare to believe that this was real. All along, it had been Qin Hao alone who'd been dazzling, shining with boundless radiance. Even though Long Ting had revealed a bit of her edge, it wasn't to the extent where it was shocking. However, at this moment, regardless of whether it was the concealed Qin Xiaobai or Long Ting, the aura and power that they'd revealed in that instant far exceeded everyone's expectations. However, what everyone didn't know was that it wasn't over yet. Just as they were shocked by Long Ting's and Qin Shui's valiance, 2 identical and charming sisters appeared behind Moling Takshu with the same speed, the same expression, and the same aura. However, their postures were completely symmetrical, and they were as fast as ghosts. There was no need to think too much about it. Everyone understood that this pair of sisters had completely merged into one at this moment. Any one of them was like an arm to the other. It was not just telepathy, but body and mind as one, strength as one. Moling Takshu sensed the sudden attacks coming from all directions. In his horror, he abandoned all thoughts of life and death. As if a small universe had exploded, his sword momentum didn't change, and the strength around him instantly soared by a level. At this moment, facing an unprecedented life-or-death crisis, he became calmer and made the most correct choice. Even if he died, he would slay Qin Hao with his sword. It was a pity. How is this possible? At the same time, Hu Mainyang was also shocked by the sudden appearance of Long Ting, Qin Shui, and the sisters. She knew that Qin Hao had accomplices, but even if she had 10 heads, she would never have thought that unknown accomplices would be so strong. Moreover, there was more than one of them. This situation caused her to lose her composure, which she hadn't lost since the beginning. She knew very well that even if Moling Takshu was stronger than the 4 of them individually, he wouldn't be able to deal with the enemies from all sides. As for herself, it was easy to pin down Qin Hao, but it was extremely difficult to intimidate him. She couldn't divert her attention to battle. Otherwise, Qin Hao would immediately be freed. In other words, while she pinned down Qin Hao, she wouldn't be able to do anything herself. Once Moling Takshu died, it would be time for the 4 girls to swing their swords at her. No matter how strong she was, she wouldn't have any chance of winning against the siege of Qin Hao and the 4 girls. She might even die if she wasn't careful. Although she was unwilling, she knew that she couldn't hesitate. Otherwise, it would be out of her control. Hiss! There will be. Hu Mainyang pulled herself out, turned around, and fled out of the palace as fast as lightning. At the same time, her charming voice rang out. Although she was frustrated, she couldn't lose the elegance of the Misty Rain House's saintess. However, she had only said 3 words, swoosh. The moment Hu Mainyang withdrew the Red Dust Heart Sutra and suddenly fled, Qin Hao didn't hesitate to throw his sword and saber at her. However, it was too hasty at the moment. Whether it was his strength or control, he couldn't reach the peak state. However, Chen Hao didn't intend to shoot it down. It was enough to stop Hu Mainyang for a moment. No matter how fast she fled, could she be faster than the flying sword and saber? Therefore, all the cultivators who turned to look at the fleeing Hu Mainyang saw a scene that shocked them to the extreme. The rotating sword and saber drew two beautiful trajectories in front of Hu Mainyang to kill her. Hu Mainyang's voice came to an abrupt stop. With a shout, she struck out with her palms. Whether it was the angle, the strength, or the Tao law contained, they all displayed extremely terrifying energy. She easily sent the sword and saber flying, but her figure was destined to be forced to stop for a moment. "You motherfucker!" It was also at that moment that Chen Hao rushed forward like a cannonball and kicked at Hu Mainyang. This kick was absolutely earth-shattering. What was even more shocking was Chen Hao's angry curses. This was the high and mighty saintess of the Misty Rain House. Hu Mainyang coldly snorted. She didn't even turn her head as she sent a palm strike behind her. In her opinion, not only was Chen Hao's kick useless, it would even allow her to borrow the force of his kick to escape even faster. Hu Mainyang burst into a scream of horror, shame, and anger as she disappeared in the direction of the gate. Everyone could clearly see blood-red footprints appearing on Hu Mainyang's plump and seductive buttocks. "Chen Hao, just you wait. I, Hu Mainyang, will avenge today's humiliation no matter what." Hu Mainyang's voice was no longer coquettish. Instead, it was extremely cold. One could imagine what kind of anger made Hu Mainyang, who had always maintained a calm and serene demeanor, lose her composure. Except for Hu Mainyang, no one knew how Chen Hao's seemingly useless kick broke the force of Hu Mainyang's palm and landed on her buttocks. Everyone was a little dumbfounded, but more of them were horrified by Chen Hao's performance. Today's incident was bound to cause a sensation in the entire cultivation world. Who would have thought that the saintess of the Misty Rain House, who was born charming and had an innate Taoist embryo, would be forced to flee by Chen Hao and even kicked on her buttocks? Qidian has launched a free Qidian Coins event for mobile users who download the Uni app. The event is as follows. During the event, new users who download the latest version of the Uni Android app will receive the following rewards. 1. Directly receive 200 Qidian Coins or choose to draw a grand prize of 10,000 Qidian Coins. 2. Users who download and install the Qidian Reading app for the first time through the Uni Android app will receive another 200 Qidian Coins. 3. Complete the Uni mission and more surprises await you. For more details, there is a promotional link on Qidian's homepage, http://www. Qidian. Comploy 2013065 Uni. ASPX Proud Heavens results are very poor. I hope that readers who have not subscribed before will participate in this event and receive Qidian Coins for free to support Proud Heavens subscription. Especially Chapter 97, Star Shaking Punch. Thank you. From today onwards, there will be stable updates. Chapter 710. Chen Hao returned to the depths of the hall as if nothing had happened. At this time, all the cultivators who turned to look at Chen Hao and Hu Mainyang, although they were not surprised, still sucked in a breath of cold air. Moling Takshu was decapitated. Chen Shui's sword pierced through his head. The sisters, Ling Ninghuan's sword, stained with blood, cut off his neck. Ling Ninghu's sword pierced through her heart. Only Long Ting's right hand was bleeding and her face was pale. "Sister Ting, are you all right?" Chen Hao quickly walked over and took Moling Takshu's head from Chen Shui's sword. He threw it on the ground and stomped on it as if he had done something insignificant. At the same time, he looked worriedly at Long Ting's bleeding hand and asked, "I'm fine, just a little tired." Long Ting said weakly, "If I had known, I would have done it. Damn it, I only kicked that bitch once, but you were injured." Chen Hao said without hiding anything. Everyone who heard this trembled. Kicking the saintess Hu Mainyang's butt and calling her a bitch, Chen Hao was probably the only person in the world who could do this. Everyone was sure that after stepping out of the primitive mystic realm, Chen Hao had no hope of survival. Killing Bai Yen, killing Moling Takshu, and kicking Hu Mainyang, any one of them was fatal. Especially kicking Hu Mainyang's butt, Not to mention Hu Mainyang would definitely not let it go. Just Hu Mainyang's army of genius admirers could drown Chen Hao. Hu Mainyang was in contact with super geniuses of the heavenly immortal stage from the temple. For the sake of pleasing Hu Mainyang, these geniuses would probably fight to be the first to ravage and kill Chen Hao. As for the four women, only Long Ting and others knew about her background and some information. As for Qin Shui, Ling Ninghuan, and Ling Ninghu, no one knew their background, but they were all disciples of the temple. With Long Ting's background, they obviously could not protect her. As for Qin Shui and the other two, no one knew. But it was basically certain that apart from the top 10 sects or powerful families like the Bai family, no one could protect them. Of course, this was what everyone present thought. Not long after, someone noticed the abnormality. The reason was simple. After this matter spread out, not a single temple disciple recognized Qin Shui and the sisters. It was not strange that no one recognized a division, and it was also acceptable for an army. But when several armies gathered and talked about Qin Xiaobai and the sisters, not a single temple disciple recognized them. What did this mean? Qin Shui and her sisters' identities were definitely not simple. Of course, this was a matter for the future. The unreasonable are afraid of the reckless, and the reckless are afraid of the reckless. Big brother, don't be rash. This kind of person is doomed to die. He can do anything. There's no need for us to take the risk and fight with him. Risk? With the four of us brothers together and a team of 500 people, how could we be afraid of him? If we give it up just like that, we, the four berserk dragons of the Holy Temple, might as well change our name to the four reptiles. Not bad. Big brother was right. It would have been fine if he hadn't encountered them, but since he had, there was no reason for him to back down. Second brother, you've always been cautious, but this time, you're being too cautious. It's just a rumor. How can we, the four berserk dragons, be afraid before the battle? That's right, second brother. Although he killed Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, and even humiliated and forced Miss Hu to leave, we also understood the situation at that time. That brat only relied on his strong physical body. Long Ting and his team also has a strong physical body. Although Qin Xiaobai and the two sisters are strong, they are nothing to the four of us. Now that we're at the 6th level of the Forbidden Zone, how much weaker is the advantage of our physical bodies compared to before? There's no need to be afraid. With the four of us working together, there's no need to fear anyone. That's right. Our Heavenly Dragon's 4 Elephants battle formation has been raised to perfection, and our understanding of the 9 restrictions is close to perfection. What's there to fear? Not only are we going to fight for the core palace, we're going to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. We're going to spread the name of the 4 berserk dragons. More importantly, second brother, don't forget that this kid has the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core and countless treasures. The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core is a heaven-defying treasure. If the 4 of us obtain it, who in the temple can fight against us? This? Big brother, third brother, fourth brother, all right, it's settled then. Big brother waved his hand to stop the frowning and hesitating second brother. He had already steeled his heart to do it and firmly believed that this was an excellent opportunity for the 4 berserk dragons of the temple. Therefore, he could only stop second brother from saying anything that would damage their morale. All right, since all of you think it's fine, we'll do it. However, big brother, since we're going to do it, we can't be like those 2 idiots, Moling Takshu and Bai Yen. We should do it. The resourceful second brother whispered to the other 3 for a moment. Although big brother, third brother, and fourth brother firmly believed in the combat strength of the 4 of them working together, they finally agreed under second brother's insistence. After all, second brother's method might not be able to display their strength to the greatest extent, but it was safer. Soon, second brother gathered the group of 500 people. The 4 berserk dragons, they actually appeared here. I wonder if they dare to provoke Chen Hao and the others. Leader, who are the 4 berserk dragons? Are they powerful? Of course, they're powerful, but their family is even more powerful. They're one of the families in our vast universe galaxy that can contend with the 10 great sects, the Wan family. I don't know what secret technique their family has obtained, But every generation of direct descendants can produce quadruplet brothers. They come in groups, and the family head is jointly held by the 4 Battery brothers. Although I don't know the details, it's rumored that the quadruplet brothers in their family share their wives. On the surface, they share, but in reality, they don't share. Cough cough, I'm sorry to say too much? The 4 berserk dragons are nicknames given by the people of our divine temple. They're called Soaring Dragon, Leaping Tiger, Wan Long, Wan Teng, Wan Hu, Wan Yu. Any one of the 4 is very strong, and they're all ranked within the top 50 in the Earth's celestial stage. Top 50? Leader, that's not very high. They're not even as strong as Bai Yen and Moling Takshu. Their individual strength is not as good as Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, but if they work together, let alone Bai Yen and Moling Takshu, any one of the top 10, no, any 4 of them working together would not be a match for them. It can't be, right? Could it be that the 4 brothers have achieved the unity of body and mind and strength? Even so, I'm afraid it's impossible. It's more terrifying than what you think. The Wan family's quadruplets and the Wan family's ancestral battle formation, the heavenly dragon's 4 elephants, complement each other. It not only allows the 4 of them to achieve the unity of body and mind and strength, but also allows them to transform and create the heavenly dragon territory. Now, even the 9 seals of celestial sealing have reached the 6th layer. Looking at them, I'm afraid they've been able to use it for a long time. Look, they've gone deep. Let's go and have a look. Chapter 7:11. It had been 3 years since Chen Hao killed Moling Takshu, Bai Yen, and kicked Hu Mainyang, the saintess of the Misty Rain House. Since then, Chen Hao and the girls had not encountered any threats. Their journey was smooth, and everyone avoided them. As long as they were in the area where Chen Hao and the others appeared, no one dared to challenge them in the core palace. The bold were afraid of the reckless, and the reckless were afraid of the reckless, especially the powerful and reckless Chen Hao. He dared to kill Bai Yen and Moling Takshu, and even humiliate the saintess of the Misty Rain House. What else did he not dare to do? This battle deterred the world, and his fierce reputation spread far and wide. Without enough confidence, who dared to challenge him? Even the top powerhouses who knew where Chen Hao was avoided him directly. They would rather spend more time in other areas. Otherwise, they would not be able to get the core palace. Each level of the forbidden area was divided into many areas according to the area, and each area had a core palace. The further they went, the more cultivators gathered in each area. Originally, under normal circumstances, it was possible for the mysterious clan to start a war. But because the 9 great forbidden areas had been opened, the possibility of a war between different races was avoided prematurely. Because everyone wanted to comprehend and go deep into the core as soon as possible. After breaking through the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing, the core area was the final battlefield. On the 6th level, it was difficult for a team of dozens of people to get the smallest palace. From this, one could see how many cultivators there were. Today, the 6th level of the forbidden area finally appeared. Someone dared to challenge Chen Hao and the others. They were the 4 mad dragons of the divine temple, Wan Jialong and Hu Yu brothers, who were equally famous and domineering. Swish, as the 4 wild dragons took the lead and headed straight toward the core palace in the depths, countless cultivators in the surroundings stopped cultivating and got up one after another, following behind them with excited and expectant looks on their faces. The 4 mad dragons are so powerful. This nickname is not self-given, but a title given by the divine temple. Not to mention the Earth's celestial stage, even among the disciples of the divine temple in the heaven celestial stage, there are not many who can get this title. The 4 of them are inseparable. When the battle formation of the 4 symbols of the sky dragon is used, no one in the Earth's celestial stage can defeat them. It is said that an ordinary cultivator at the initial stage of the heavenly celestial stage cannot withstand the heavenly dragon territory of the 4 of them. It can't be? Even heavenly immortals can't do it? This is the truth. Our family has some ties with the Wan family. Before we entered the primitive secret area, their family had tested us with experts at the beginning stage of the heavenly celestial stage. They were the winners. Hiss! The words of a disciple from the sanctum made the surrounding cultivators who wanted to watch the show gasp. Although he was talking about an ordinary cultivator at the initial stage of the heaven celestial stage, it still shocked everyone. There was an insurmountable gap between the heaven celestial stage and the earth celestial stage. A genius at the peak of the later stage of the earth celestial stage couldn't be compared with an ordinary cultivator at the initial stage of the heaven celestial stage. Of the three realms of heaven, earth, and man, earth, man, mortal, and heaven, true immortal. They were only one step apart, but it was like heaven on earth. However, when the four berserk dragons of the Holy Temple joined forces, they actually had the strength to defeat an ordinary expert at the early stage of the heaven celestial stage. This was absolutely heaven-defying. No wonder the four berserk dragons aren't afraid of Chen Hao and the others. Just wait and see. The four berserk dragons are called the four berserk dragons not only because of their strength, but also because of their arrogance. In the sanctum, they can do whatever they want. Even the top 10 geniuses at the Earth celestial stage have to avoid them. They are also ruthless people who dare to ignore the unspoken rules. Then wouldn't Chen Hao and the others be in trouble? Isn't that obvious? I don't think so, right? Just now, we sense the aura of Chen Hao and the others. Not to mention Chen Hao, Long Ting, Chen Xiaobai, and the sisters all have extremely powerful auras. Long Ting, Chen Shui, and the sisters had killed Moling Takshu, who was ranked 10th in the sanctum, with a single move. They were also very famous. Moreover, during this period as more and more disciples from the sanctum met, everyone had some doubts about the identities of Chen Shui and the sisters. This was because, until now, no one had heard of the three of them in the sanctum. This was a little abnormal. Chen Shui didn't say anything. After all, she had changed her appearance and wasn't that outstanding. However, the sisters who looked exactly the same, although they had changed their appearance, they were rare existences. Even if they looked ordinary, they were still people who attracted attention. There was no reason why no one had heard of them. That's because you don't understand the combat power of the four berserk dragons when they join forces. Just wait and see. He's arrived here? A female disciple, who was sitting cross-legged in a corner and wearing a loose black robe, had an ordinary appearance but a powerful aura. She was awakened by the huge commotion and discussion on the main road. Her eyes became extremely lively, and her expression was extremely complicated. Her delicate body, which was hidden under the loose black robe, trembled slightly. She was obviously very emotional. After stepping into the primitive mystic realm, she had deliberately deviated from the route for some reason. She had taken a very long detour before she began to go deeper. Alone, he walked forward in solitude. In the primitive mystic realm, in the past 20 years, she had experienced many cruel fights. She had encountered many life and death situations. She had also gained a lot and improved greatly. But the biggest change was, 2 years ago, she had learned that Chen Hao had killed Moling Takshu and Bai Yan. She had learned of the terrifying strength that Long Ting, Chen Xiaobai, and the beautiful sisters had displayed. She had guessed who Chen Xiaobai and the beautiful sisters were. Originally, she should have been very shocked, very unwilling, and very angry. But everything was different from what she had imagined. After hesitating for a few minutes, she took a deep breath and stood up. Her aura became even more restrained at this moment. She blended into the flow of people and walked in the opposite direction. She seemed out of place. Many people looked at her strangely. They did not understand why this female disciple was so different from the rest. Young cultivators had youthful and energetic hearts. Encountering such a peak battle that was about to happen, even if it meant delaying their cultivation, they would still go and take a look. But this female cultivator who had completely concealed her true appearance was far away. Her loose black Taoist robe and her lonely figure gave people a feeling of desolation. She walked further and further away, until she stepped into the city. If Chen Hao saw this figure, he would most likely be able to recognize who it was at first glance. But the expression and aura of this figure would definitely make Chen Hao puzzled. Because this was something that Chen Hao would never have thought of. People would change. But very few people could change so much in a short period of time. especially young people. Only with the passage of time, the baptism of time, the increase of experience, the richness of experience, could they gradually understand themselves, lose their impetuosity and impulsiveness, see their true nature, see their true self. But she had undergone such a huge change in the short 20 years in the primitive mystic realm. Chen Hao would not have thought of such a change. Similarly, this female cultivator would not have thought of it herself. She was Bailey Ning Bing. Everything was because of one person. A person who had died. A person who had been killed by Chen Hao. Moling Ta Shui. Chapter 712. In the past, she had been as proud as a peacock, and any geniuses of the same age on the Wuji star were but ants in her eyes. As the most beloved granddaughter of the Wuji Demon Palace's palace master, Guan Nanchao, her knowledge and vision had long surpassed the Wuji star's vast universe. It was only when Dongfang Han, who possessed the undying and indestructible inheritance, appeared that she was moved. Of course, she was moved by the immortal laws, not Dongfang Han. If she could dual cultivate with Dongfang Han, she would definitely be able to quickly obtain the immortal laws that she desperately needed and soar into the sky. But she did not expect that Dongfang Han would die at the hands of Chen Hao. And Chen Hao had obtained the undying and indestructible inheritance. So, she still held her head high and wanted Chen Hao to become her Dao companion. In her opinion, no one would reject her because she was the most outstanding person in the world. No matter if it was talent or looks, no one would reject her, but Chen Hao coldly rejected her. The proud peacock had never encountered such a situation before, and her self-esteem had suffered a severe blow. She swore that she would completely trample Chen Hao under her feet, make him regret, make him submit, but the result was that she was defeated by Chen Hao again and again. Every time she thought that she had surpassed Chen Hao, she was left in the dust again and again. Especially the last confrontation, which had almost shattered her confidence. After the appearance of the primitive mystic realm and obtaining information about Chen Hao, she wanted to use the powerful Moling Takshu to suppress, capture, and humiliate Chen Hao. So, she approached Moling Takshu and expressed her goodwill. However, what she did not expect was that even though she had always thought that she was clear about her own intentions and that she was a woman who would do anything to achieve her goals, when she approached Moling Takshu and wanted to have intimate contact with her, she felt a strong sense of disgust. She could not even accept a simple handshake or hug, much less intimate contact. Moreover, whenever Moling Takshu wanted to do something, the person she hated the most would appear in her mind, Chen Hao. That cold and disdainful gaze, that wicked and shameless smile, the humiliation towards her, especially the last time when he stripped her naked, that was a strange feeling. She hated him to the extreme, but it also made her heart unable to tolerate any man. Even if the other party was the incomparably powerful top genius Moling Takshu, she could not. Once, when Moling Takshu forcefully wanted to have intimate action with her, she impulsively gave her a big slap. This slap, it stunned Moling Takshu and also woke her. Moling Takshu originally thought that Bailey Ning Bing, who had tacitly agreed to be his Dao companion in the future, was just shy. She was reluctant, and there would definitely be no problem with some intimate contact. But he didn't expect Bailey Ning Bing to be so determined. This made him incomparably angry. He even thought of the reason. Bailey Ning Bing was using him to take revenge on Chen Hao, otherwise, how could she not let him have a taste of the sweetness of being an honorary Dao companion? It was fine if she did not hand over her body. For any genius disciple, the stronger they were, the greater the benefits. But if she could not even do intimate things, then there was definitely a problem. This made Moling Takshu fly into a rage, and she scolded Bailey Ning Bing. And Bailey Ning Bing also truly understood herself. That Chen Hao, who she hated to the point of madness and even had her mind twisted, had unknowingly taken over her heart. After falling out with Moling Takshu, she, who had truly woken up, chose to leave alone. In the primitive mystic realm, in 20 years she had thought a lot, and had truly matured. She did not know her true nature, but at least she had a clearer understanding of herself. 2 years ago, when she obtained Moling Takshu and was killed by Chen Hao, she was shocked by Chen Hao's strength and madness. She also felt sorry for Moling Takshu, but that was it. Now, she had come to a city's forbidden area. If it was in the past, even if she was not as strong, she would still take a look, and at least know her enemy. But now, she chose to stay away. The past was the past. There was no turning back, no turning back. Die, die. With the 4 berserk dragons attacking, you will definitely die. The valiant and high-spirited 4 berserk dragons walked in unison, as if they were stepping on the pulse of the world. Even though they did not deliberately release any aura, the profoundness of the 4 of them, as if they were one, gave off an unfathomable feeling. And in the group behind the 4 of them who wanted to watch, there was a cultivator in a black robe, carrying a large bag, with a hunched back and a face full of stains. He had completely changed his aura and appearance. When he saw Chen Hao at the entrance of the core palace from afar, he said viciously in his heart. He had originally entered the city, but when he heard that Chen Hao's group had already entered the city, he immediately wanted to turn around and flee. But he happened to see the 4 berserk dragons of the temple, which made him change his mind, and he followed them. Now, seeing that the 4 berserk dragons were about to compete with Chen Hao for the core palace, he was extremely excited. He has robbed me 4 times. If I had obtained treasures, especially the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core, I would definitely be a top expert by now. Fortunately, my luck is extremely strong, and I have obtained many treasures. The figure looked at Chen Hao in the distance with hatred as he thought to himself. This fellow was none other than Lan Feng, who had been robbed by Chen Hao 4 times. Ever since Chen Hao had stolen the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core and killed by Yen and Moling Takshu, he did not dare to appear in his true form. Every time he entered the city, the first thing he had to do was to confirm whether Chen Hao had appeared. As long as Chen Hao was around, he would rather slowly comprehend in the wilderness than appear in the city. It could be said that he fled at the sound of the news. This was not without reason. Every time he had been caught by Chen Hao, he had changed his appearance and aura, but he had still been recognized. This time, the 4 berserk dragons have made a move, and I have also obtained the ancient divine artifact, the form-changing ring. They definitely won't be able to see my true form, and even if they did, they definitely won't have the chance to cause trouble for me. Lan Feng looked at the backs of the 4 berserk dragons again and said with certainty. As a disciple of the temple, he knew very well how strong the 4 berserk dragons were. If the 4 of them joined forces, not to mention the vast universe galaxy, even among the 10 great tribes, there was probably no one at the Earth's celestial stage who was a match for them. However, just as Lan Feng looked at Chen Hao in front of the core palace again, Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 sharp golden lights, like weak stars, stared straight at him. How is this possible? Did he discover me? No, he's looking at the 4 berserk dragons. Motherfucker, did I, Lan Feng, grow up in fear? But why are his eyes emitting golden light? With just a glance, cold sweat broke out on Lan Feng's forehead. He stopped in his tracks and shrank back. Chapter 713. Lan Feng gritted his teeth, took a deep breath, and moved forward again. Not to mention that he wasn't sure if Chen Hao had discovered him. Even if he did, there was no need to be afraid. With the 4 wild dragons attacking, Lan Feng was sure that Chen Hao and the others were doomed. What was there to be afraid of? He really wanted to see the scene of the 4 wild dragons killing Chen Hao. Bang, bang, bang. Separated by 100 meters, the 4 wild dragons stared at Chen Hao and the others with fierce eyes. They didn't say a word, but their footsteps became heavier and heavier. The 4 of them made the same bang-bang sound, like a heavy hammer pounding on everyone's heart. Those with weaker cultivations couldn't help but release their energy. So strong, as expected of the 4 wild dragons. Lan Feng and many other cultivators were shocked. Although they had long heard of the 4 wild dragons' sky dragon battle formation of 4 symbols power, when they saw the 4 of them as one, it was still beyond their imagination. Their footsteps, breathing, and heartbeats were completely in sync. If one sensed a little, they would find that the 4 of them were like one person with 4 bodies. Their souls seemed to have fused together, and they were in perfect harmony. Behind the 4 wild dragons was a team of nearly 500 people. Many of them had a trace of madness on their faces as they looked at Chen Hao and the others with burning eyes. Seeing the team of 500 people led by the 4 of them approaching step by step, Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, narrowed his eyes slightly. His handsome face revealed a trace of seriousness, but there was even more undetectable excitement in the depths of his eyes. "It's been 3 years," Chen Hao murmured. For 3 whole years, as long as he wanted to fight for something, everyone avoided him like snakes and scorpions. No one dared to compete with him. No matter where he went, the forbidden area, the city, and the core palace of that area were all his. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. He killed Moling Takshu and Bai Yen, humiliated and forced Hu Mainyang to flee, and became the infamous God of Slaughter. On the 4th and 5th floors, he and the others changed directions several times, but it was useless. For 3 whole years, they cultivated in peace, and no one disturbed them. In this situation, not to mention Chen Hao, even the girls were a little depressed. What was the point of training and cultivation if everything went smoothly? Most of the time, they had no choice but to spar with each other, but it was always less thrilling and more scrupulous. And now, someone had finally arrived. Furthermore, based on his aura, he could tell that he was an expert. In particular, the aura of the 4 berserk dragons as one caused Chen Hao's blood, which had remained dormant for 3 years, to become excited. However, what made Chen Hao frown was the army behind the 4 mad dragons. There were nearly 500 people, and many of them looked at him and the girls with burning eyes and excitement. As they got closer and closer, the fighting intent of the 500 people formed a steel torrent headed by the 4 mad dragons. Although the surrounding people could feel the terror of this aura, compared to the target Chen Hao and the others, it was completely negligible. Chen Hao clearly felt that this battle was not a battle between him and the 4 mad dragons, but a team battle. Chen Shui, Long Ting, the sisters, Fan Donglu, and Fan Dongxing all stood up one after another, protecting Han Mei and Yun Wei. If there is a melee later, kill them directly, no need to show mercy. Chen Hao's expression did not change, and he said in a low voice, "Okay." Chen Shui and the others responded, and their auras also bloomed. In the face of such a situation, everyone knew that unless they could intimidate the other party, no matter how strong they would not be able to withstand the siege of the 4 experts and the army of nearly 500 people. They could only intimidate with their aura and kill with their lives. What arrogance! You are Chen Hao? The 4 mad dragons finally stopped when they were 50 meters away from Chen Hao, and their leader, Wan Long, stared fiercely at Chen Hao and said. At this moment, only Chen Hao was still sitting cross-legged, and he did not even stand up. At this moment, although the surroundings were terrifyingly quiet, no one was talking. They all looked at Chen Hao and held their breaths, wanting to see what Chen Hao, who had caused a sensation in the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing, would do in the face of the powerful 4 mad dragons. At this moment, just the fact that Chen Hao was sitting cross-legged and did not stand up surprised everyone. They thought that Chen Hao must be very arrogant, but they did not expect him to be so arrogant. This was absolutely a blatant contempt for the 4 mad dragons. You are the 4 mad dragons of the temple? Chen Hao slightly raised the corner of his mouth and did not answer Wan Long's question. Instead, he asked in the same disdainful tone. In the past 3 years, all the famous experts would be spread through the constantly intertwining and changing cultivators. The 4 mad dragons were undoubtedly a group that was highly praised. Although Chen Hao and the others had not met them before, they could confirm their identities based on their auras and appearances. You know it's us, but you are still so calm. Your courage is commendable. Wan Long was not angry in the face of Chen Hao's disdainful gaze. Instead, he laughed. You are courting death. 30,000 Tiger said gloomily. Boy, if you want to die quickly, hand over the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core and destroy your own primordial spirit. Otherwise, don't blame us brothers for enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens and making you beg for death. 40,000 Tiger pointed at Chen Hao and said arrogantly. Enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? Unable to live, unable to die? Ha! Chen Hao looked at 40,000 Tiger in surprise. He slowly stood up and laughed. With your moral integrity, what justice on behalf of the heavens? Unable to live, unable to die, with just the likes of you? Humph! You killed the geniuses of the human race by Yen, Moling Takshu and Chen Lin for the sake of stealing treasures. Everyone has the right to kill you. Although you will definitely die once you step out of the primitive mystic realm, we four brothers will not allow you to continue killing our fellow humans. At this moment, Wan Teng, who had been silent all this while, said sternly with a righteous tone. Kill the devil and enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Chen Hao is inhumane. He even dares to kill the geniuses of the divine palace. He is a devil. Brother Wan, don't talk nonsense with him. Let's kill this devil and enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. In the team of the 4 wild dragons, many people also clamored with righteous indignation, as if they wanted to tear Chen Hao to shreds. Their morale also instantly soared. However, what made Wan Teng frown slightly was that the expressions of Chen Hao, Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the others did not change at all. Only the rising fighting spirit became more and more intense. Senior Immortal Yun Wei, who was blocked by Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the others, looked solemn. Apparently, she was very worried about the current situation. The disparity between the enemy and her was too great. She had also heard about the strength of the 4 mad dragons. Therefore, the current situation was not optimistic, especially when she felt that she and Senior Immortal Han Mei were burdens. However, unlike Senior Immortal Yun Wei, although Senior Immortal Han Mei was also nervous and worried, there was a faint glimmer of expectation in the depths of her eyes. She stared at Chen Hao's back. Haha! Chen Hao suddenly laughed wildly. His laughter was as loud as thunder, directly suppressing the noise of the chattering. He said, "For mad dragons, before I met you, I more or less thought that you should be powerful. After meeting you, do you deserve to be called mad dragons? Bai Yen and Moling Takshu are 100 times stronger than you. If you want the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core, just say it. Why do you have to be hypocritical and talk about enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? Don't insult the word mad dragons anymore. Reptiles are more suitable for you." Chapter 714. Clang. Boom. Chen Hao unsheathed his sword and released his aura. You think you can take me down by luring them to their deaths? You're fucking dreaming. Come on, I'll beat you all up. Holding his sword in front of his chest, his battle intent and blood chi erupted like a flood. His slaughter sword chi covered the sky and earth. His figure, which was not tall, seemed to have transformed into a god of slaughter. His sword pointed at the crowd, and he looked down on the world with disdain. Crazy. Crazy enough to swallow mountains and rivers. Just his aura alone was enough to frighten all the cultivators within a few hundred feet. Not to mention those who had never seen Chen Hao before, even Lan Feng and the others who had seen Chen Hao's ferocity and power were intimidated by Chen Hao's intense killing intent, causing their hair to stand on end. It had been 3 years. For 3 whole years, no one had dared to lightly go against him. They'd originally thought that Chen Hao, who relied more on his physical body, would have less and less advantage as the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing were unsealed step by step. However, at this moment, Chen Hao merely released his aura in an unbridled manner, and it allowed everyone to clearly see that the current Chen Hao was even more terrifying. Especially the aura of the slaughter sword Tao, which seemed to have materialized. The cultivators who had been clamoring to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens widened their eyes in horror. Chen Hao rarely used the slaughter sword Tao. However, at this moment, in order to reduce the number of people killed, he had to use the slaughter sword Tao to deter them. You're courting death. You're courting death. The 4 of us can kill you like killing dogs. All of you back off. Boom, boom, boom. Big Brother Wan Long, Big Brother Wan Hu, and Big Brother Wan Yu were infuriated by Chen Hao's arrogant words and attitude. At this moment, they regretted listening to Big Brother Wan Teng's idea. When had the 4 mad dragons ever been afraid? When had they ever talked about reason? They had always been disdainful of acting like whores, but this time, because of Chen Hao and the others, Big Brother Wan Ting had offered generous conditions to bewitch the cultivators under him. It could be said that this was the only time they had done something like this. However, this time, they were mocked by Chen Hao as insects. This made Wan Long, Wan Hu, and Wan Yu feel ashamed and unable to tolerate it. Big Brother. Shut up. Second Brother, no one can insult the name of the 4 berserk dragons. Today, we must let this arrogant brat know who is the real worm. Boss Wan Long said without hesitation, directly sealing Wan Ting's mouth. He stared coldly at Chen Hao and said, "Very good. I, Wan Long, thought that you and all of you weren't qualified for us 4 brothers to act. My subordinates were enough to kill you all. Now it seems that we have underestimated you. That's right, it's too fake to say that we're enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. We, the 4 berserk dragons, are here for the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core. Hand it over and the 4 of them won't die. I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, all of you will die." Wan Long's voice was cold and arrogant. He was not brainless. He knew that Chen Hao was deliberately provoking him, but he still chose to say it. They were already indifferent to OL Second's decision from the start. Now that Chen Hao had used this opportunity to humiliate the 4 berserk dragons, there was no need for them to do so anymore. If they did that, even if they won, it would stain the reputation of the 4 berserk dragons. It might even affect their Tao heart in the future. Second Brother Wan Teng's tightly knitted brows gradually relaxed. He was influenced by the 3 brothers' determination and instantly became unscrupulous. More accurately, he could not be unscrupulous. Furthermore, Wan Long's words just now were not completely ignored. Letting Long Ting, Chen Shui, and the sisters go, especially Chen Shui and the sisters, who were likely to have fake identities, was his suggestion. Up until now, none of the Sacred Hall disciples had recognized Qin Shaobai and the sisters before coming to the primitive secret realm. Although he could not be sure now if the 3 of them really had fake identities, their backgrounds were definitely not simple. "You are someone. Hand over the treasures on you and I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise die." At the moment when swords were drawn, everyone knew that a great battle was about to break out. However, they still didn't expect Chen Hao to give them a taste of their own medicine, so they said tit for tat. Arrogant. Boom 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 boom. Clang 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 clang. The 4 berserk dragons roared at the same time. Their voices, tones, and expressions all became the same. At the same time, there was an explosion from their bodies. Their essence, qi, and spirit fused into one and they unsheathed their swords. Chi 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 chi. Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the sisters rushed to Chen Hao's side at the same time and stood shoulder to shoulder. The surrounding cultivators, including the team behind the 4 berserk dragons, were all frightened away by the pressure that had suddenly soared by countless times. At this moment, they realized that whether it was the 4 berserk dragons or Chen Hao's group, they were not people they could contend against. Just the pressure alone made it difficult for them to move, let alone fight. That was simply courting death. Unless they fought to the death with no regard for their lives, there would be no effect. They would just be throwing their lives away. The 4 of you, on account of the fact that you are all disciples of the Divine Hall, if you don't want to die, step back. Wan Teng frowned and said to Chen Shui and the other 3. On account of the fact that you are all disciples of the Divine Hall, it's not too late for you to regret now. Otherwise, Chen Shui said fearlessly as a terrifying destruction sword principle aura bloomed around her. Kill without mercy. Long Ting, who had always had an optimistic appearance, was now filled with fighting spirit. Her majestic and powerful physical aura was actually emitting a faint golden light as she continued Chen Shui's words. Since you don't want to listen to us, don't blame us for being ruthless. Wan Ting said. At this moment, the 4 berserk dragons' expressions turned solemn. The auras of Chen Hao and the 4 girls were not weaker than any of them. Although they were confident that they would win, they also knew that this battle would be the most difficult battle since they entered the primitive secret realm. It was impossible to take them down easily. Chen Hao suddenly looked at Chen Shui and the other 3 and frowned slightly. He secretly gave them a look and said, "I alone am enough to deal with them. You guys save your strength." Crash, isn't that too awesome? Does Chen Hao not know anything about the 4 berserk dragons? He's courting death. If the 5 of them join forces, it's still possible. What's the difference between him and his death? Yes, although the 4 berserk dragons are not very strong individually, if they join forces, who can defeat them? The cultivators, who had already retreated far away, immediately burst into discussion when they heard Chen Hao's arrogant words that did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Then be careful. Chen Shui frowned slightly and her expression turned solemn. Swoosh, swoosh, roar. At the moment when Chen Shui and the other 3 retreated, the 4 berserk dragons did not waste any more words. They directly attacked from 50 meters away. The 4 swords shot out together, and the sword qi contained the power of heaven as they charged toward Chen Hao. The powerful heavenly Tao law was forced to disperse, the wind raged and the sky changed color. At this moment, the aura that was released caused the surrounding cultivators to gasp. Heavenly Dragon Sword Art. It's really powerful. He hasn't broken through the 6th limit and already has such power. A figure quietly hidden in the crowd narrowed his eyes and immediately locked onto Chen Hao, who was swinging his sword. He thought to himself, I want to see how strong he is. It's been 3 years. I must get the Tao manifestation Immortal Fruit Core. Around this figure, who had completely hidden his true body, there were several people who had restrained their aura to the extreme and changed their appearance and aura. Their seemingly ordinary eyes were locked onto Chen Hao at this moment. They knew very well how strong the 4 berserk dragons were. The heavenly dragon sword art was just the beginning. They hoped that Chen Hao could win. Facing Chen Hao was much better than facing the 4 berserk dragons. However, that was unrealistic. In their opinion, Chen Hao would definitely lose this battle and they would still have to face the 4 berserk dragons in the end. Break for me. Chen Hao directly increased his strength to 100%, and a rare solemn expression appeared between his brows. For 3 years, he, who was as lonely as snow, did not think that the battle back then could give him and the girls eternal peace. That was just the calm before the storm. Today, the appearance of the 4 berserk dragons was the fuse. It was also just the fuse. Even if there were only the 4 berserk dragons, it would not be easy for Chen Hao to win, not to mention, therefore, Chen Hao did not show any mercy. Rumble, the sky fell and the earth cracked. The sword slashed the 4 berserk dragons. The raging energy directly detonated heaven and earth. Retreat. The surrounding cultivators had already retreated far enough considering the strength of the 4 berserk dragons and Chen Hao. However, the terrifying energy released from the first move made the cultivators closer to them scream in horror. One by one, they activated their energy and quickly retreated. No one expected that the 4 berserk dragons' probing attack would cause Chen Hao to directly explode. The raging energy turbulence was enough to severely injure an ordinary cultivator. Under the condition that the 9 seals of immortal sealing had not been unsealed, he could release such power. Bang, 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 bang. The 4 berserk dragons also frowned, but they did not panic at all. This was just a probing attack. When the 4 sword qi dragons were released, a terrifying energy also erupted under their feet. Gravel flew everywhere, and 4 deep pits appeared. The 4 of them were like arrows released from a bow, instantly surrounding Chen Hao. You want to end this quickly? That's exactly what I want. Then I'll let you experience the power of the 4 celestial dragons. Celestial Dragon Territory. Boom. The arrogant and cold voice of the leader of the 10,000 dragons sounded. The moment the 4 of them surrounded Chen Hao in the 4 celestial dragons' positions, there was an explosion at the same time. Essence Qi condensed into 4 pillars of light, soaring into the sky, spiraling and dancing together. Celestial Dragon Territory? At this moment, Chen Hao felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. Powerful indeed. Damn it, not one of them came. Once they came, they all came. It will be difficult to escape unscathed today. Facing the 4 celestial dragons' special ability, the Celestial Dragon Territory, Chen Hao felt immense pressure. Unless I tell them, Chen Hao's mind raced, but he immediately rejected this idea. With the 4 berserk dragons' nature, even if he said that someone wanted to be the Oriole, it would be difficult for them to stop the battle. Instead, it would weaken his momentum. Then let's fight. Today, let me test my strongest battle prowess. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 7:15. Ha! Idiot, in the same realm, no one dares to fight with us 4 brothers. Ha! You're really an idiot. I thought it would take a lot of effort, but I didn't expect that there would be someone who didn't dodge in front of us. If you had honestly handed over the Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core at the beginning, we could have left you with an intact corpse. But now, Humph, I will personally dig it out from your dantian and tear you to pieces. The Tao Manifestation Immortal Fruit Core is such a precious treasure that only us brothers can have. Big brother, third brother, fourth brother, no need to talk nonsense with him. Let's end this quickly. The eyes of the 4 wild dragons shone with arrogance and excitement. Each of their auras was as heavy as a mountain. Under the bright light of the Sky Dragon territory, they were like gods, looking down on the world with disdain and absolute power. To be able to easily surround Chen Hao and form the Sky Dragon territory was indeed beyond their expectations. Under normal circumstances, in the same realm, any top genius in the vast universe star system would have to avoid fighting. The 4 of them usually formed the Sky Dragon battle formation of 4 divisions first, and after their mental strength was completely combined, they would use their combined strength and speed to surround their opponent and use the Sky Dragon territory. Once the Sky Dragon territory trapped their opponent, that would be the moment they won. There had never been an exception. The 4 of them didn't expect that they would be able to surround Chen Hao so easily. Although this was inevitable in the end, it also saved a lot of time and energy. How could the 4 of them not be excited? In their opinion, either Chen Hao did not understand the terror of their heavenly dragon domain, or he was so arrogant that he could not find north. There is no suspense. I really don't know if this Chen Hao is too arrogant or he doesn't know the power of the 4 wild dragons. The Sky Dragon territory is enveloped. Not to mention Chen Hao, even an early heavenly immortal stage master would have to surrender. I thought he was strong, but I didn't expect him to be defeated so soon. What should we do? The sisters asked worriedly. At this moment, not to mention Chen Hao, who was in the core of the Sky Dragon territory, even they who were outside could feel the terrifying pressure emitted by the Sky Dragon territory. They were sure that as long as they rushed forward, they would be trapped in it, and it would be difficult for them to even touch the 4 wild dragons. Brother Hao knows how powerful the Sky Dragon territory is. Since he didn't dodge, he should be able to break it. If he can't, we'll attack. Long Ting's battle-intent sword. Her long hair danced in the wind, and her majestic and terrifying blood energy caused the surrounding space to distort. Don't worry, although I don't know the present, but when he was very weak back then, he was able to break through a domain that was higher than his own realm. Although the heavenly dragon domain is strong, it is still a domain, and it is a domain derived from the heavenly dragon 4 symbols formation. What Hao is least afraid of is formations. Chen Shui's beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at the 4 wild dragons and Chen Hao. Although her words were relaxed, her aura was the same as Long Ting's. Both of them had gathered to the peak. Once there was a change, there was no doubt that she would unleash an earth-shattering attack. Even if she fell into the heavenly dragon domain, she would not hesitate. As for the Oriole that Chen Hao had discovered long ago, they could only take it one step at a time. No matter what, today was destined to be a bloody battle. Dismember into 1,000 pieces? Today, I'll punch the tiger of the southern mountain and kick the dragon of the northern sea, and you 4 worms? Watch how I trample you into meat paste. Come, boom. When the 4 wild dragons were complacent, everyone thought that Chen Hao was going to lose, and Chen Hao and the rest were worried about him. Chen Hao's body, which seemed to be bent by the Sky Dragon territory, suddenly straightened like an arrow released from a bow. Your strength is not bad, but it's a pity that it's just a last-ditch struggle. Kill him. Boss Wan Long's robe swelled up, and his eyes were filled with killing intent as he let out a loud roar. Boss Wan Yu followed his roar and swung his sword. Rumble, the earth trembled, and the space shattered. A terrifying sword light, like a silver waterfall, slashed toward Qin Hao with a terrifying force. No one in the Earth's celestial stage can block this sword. Although the 4 wild dragons were surprised that Qin Hao could straighten his body, they were only surprised. At this moment, Boss Wan Yu's sword slashed out, and that was the moment when Qin Hao would die. In their opinion, no one in the Earth's celestial stage could resist the combined power of the 4 brothers. Especially in the Sky Dragon territory, their power was enhanced, and Qin Hao had to divert a large part of his power to resist the suppression of the territory. What was the suspense? Get ready! The moment Wan Yu slashed his sword, several figures had already quietly approached from the crowd. One of the figures' beautiful vermilion lips opened slightly. Although there was no sound, the people who had been paying attention to her all this time instantly understood. One by one, they grasped the hilts of their swords, and a sharp light flashed in their eyes. Buzz! Qin Hao attacked. His speed was not fast. To be exact, it was very slow in the eyes of the crowd. It was so slow that everyone could see every movement of his body, as if it was in slow motion. It was a sharp contrast to Wan Yu's sword. Moreover, Qin Hao's sword seemed to be very heavy. However, while Qin Hao's sword was still charging forward, it made a fierce buzzing sound. The ancient sword, which was shining with a cold light, seemed to suddenly become bigger and its shape changed. Rumble! The moment Wan Yu's sword light neared his body, Qin Hao's action of thrusting his sword forward suddenly erupted. When the sword light and the treasure sword met, it was as if heavenly thunder had broken through the sky. The translucent golden heavenly dragon domain began to tremble violently. Rumble! Immediately, an even more terrifying explosion was heard. Dust filled the air, and gravel flew everywhere. Crisscrossing sword marks and deep pits appeared on the hard rock ground. Ah ah ah! Rumble, rumble, rumble! Terrifying screams erupted from the surrounding crowd. Countless people activated their energy to defend themselves. Those who reacted slower were injured. Fortunately, it was only a turbulent flow of energy and was not enough to kill them. The surrounding palaces automatically shone with a powerful protective light at this moment. Wan Yu's robe was riddled with holes. If not for the soft armor he wore before entering the primitive secret realm, he would probably be naked in front of everyone. Impossible! How is this possible? Regardless of whether it was the 4 wild dragons, the spectating cultivators, or the Oriole hiding in the surroundings, ready to make a move at the critical moment, all of them widened their eyes in shock. No one had thought that in the heavenly dragon domain, under the situation where one side was weakened and the other side was strengthened, not only was Qin Hao not killed, he even gained the upper hand. He is actually so strong. There is no need to hold back, kill. After a short period of shock, the 10,000 dragons, who were at the core, glared angrily. Light shone brightly, and suddenly, it was as if they were burning in flames. A dragon-shaped shadow appeared on their bodies, and a bright light rose. Like a divine dragon roaming the void, they stabbed out with their sword. At the same time, second brother, third brother, and fourth brother attacked at the same time with the same posture. No one could imagine how powerful these 4 swords were when they merged into one. Chapter 716. Roar! Clap, clap, clap. Qin Hao's body trembled violently as his meridians and bones emitted dense explosive sounds. His clothes swelled up, his hair danced wildly, and his eyes burst with light. His sword drew a Tai Chi symbol that seemed slow and heavy, but it was unknown whether it was because the pressure he was enduring was too great or because the energy contained was too majestic, but in the blink of an eye, his eyes actually turned into 2 colors. His left eye was as black as ink, while his right eye was as white as snow. They slowly circled around his body, as if they were cutting space apart, and a black and white Tai Chi symbol that wrapped around his body condensed. It was also at this moment that Qin Hao's sword and palm struck out together. Bang! The sword light streaked across countless times in an instant, and at the same time, A black and white intertwined palm print seemed to have come from the sky. It was black and white, and it caused the four symbols domain to swell and tremble violently, causing the heaven and earth to lose their color. At this moment, Qin Shui, Long Ting, and the sisters who were about to decisively attack suddenly stopped, their eyes filled with shock. Even they were incomparably shocked. One must know that all these years, they had always been together with Chen Hao, and it could be said that they already knew Chen Hao very well. But at this time, they discovered that Chen Hao, who had always been right under their noses, still had too many things that they could not imagine, rumble. In the second confrontation, they finally met. Tai Chi Yin and Yang devoured the heaven and earth, and the four symbols of the heavenly dragon toppled the mountains and overturned the seas, creating a myriad of phenomena. Bang! Rumble! The heavenly dragon domain, which caused all the cultivators of the same realm to turn pale at the mention of it, was no longer able to withstand the terrifying energy explosion and burst apart. The golden energy of the domain was like a chaotic world piercing through the sky, surging like raging waves, violently shooting in all directions. Rumble! Rumble, Qin Shui, Long Ting, and all the other experts gathered their energy in shock, forming a powerful protective aura, and rapidly retreated. Puff, puff, puff. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Chen Hao and the four wild dragons' mouths. Chen Hao stood still, while the four wild dragons were sent flying in four different directions. Chen Hao's Taoist robe could no longer withstand the bombardment of the terrifying energy and directly became ragged. Fortunately, he did his best to protect himself and did not turn into ashes. Otherwise, Chen Hao, who was not wearing any soft armor, was afraid that a gentleman's balls would be exposed in front of everyone. Under the tattered Taoist robe, every inch of exposed skin had turned blood red. Blood was seeping out from every pore. It was a ghastly sight. Anyone who saw this scene would be incomparably horrified. They couldn't imagine what kind of pressure and force Chen Hao had endured to become like this. So powerful! All these years, no one has been able to force me to such an extent. Heavenly Dragon Battle Formation of four symbols, Heavenly Dragon Domain, for people as one. If it weren't for the Dragon Elephant Great Strength technique of the 3,000 Great Paths, I really would have died here today. Chen Hao had long expected that this battle would be very difficult. However, although it was difficult, he was still quite confident in his physical body, battle skills, and battle strength. He had the belief that he would definitely win. Now, he had indeed broken the Heavenly Dragon Domain and seriously injured the four of them, but the degree of difficulty far exceeded Chen Hao's imagination. If he did not have the ultimate techniques of the 3,000 Great Paths, he would probably have fallen at the hands of the four of them. On the other hand, the four wild dragons who were sent flying were in a worse state than Chen Hao. The soft armor on their bodies was riddled with holes, their mouths were full of blood, and their faces were pale. Their vitality, which was still strong just now, was now terrifyingly weak. This was not only a physical injury, but more importantly, a mental injury caused by the collapse of the Heavenly Dragon Domain. Any domain was completely connected to the caster's mind. If the domain was broken, the mind would be damaged. How could this brat be so abnormal? The four wild dragons were shocked. Others might not know, but they clearly knew how terrifying the power contained in the attack just now was. The full-strength attack of the four of them as one, the amplification of the Heavenly Dragon Battle Formation of four symbols, and the Heavenly Dragon Domain was enough to let the attack just now display 20 times the power of their individual attacks. However, Chen Hao actually broke the Heavenly Dragon Battle Formation of four symbols in the instant of the attack and pierced the only way out of the battle formation. If it was just this, it would have been fine. After all, their attack had been completed, but Chen Hao actually withstood their attack with his own strength, breaking the domain and seriously injuring them. This was simply impossible. Roar! The 10,000 dragons roared. The more frustrated they were, the braver they became, and they went completely crazy. Kill. Even if we're seriously injured, we have to kill this brat. Combine. Boom. The withered vitality was instantly released again. The dragon soared and the tiger leaped as the four symbols became one. At this moment, The four figures were no longer separated. Instead, they combined together in an extremely strange way in an instant. This is also possible. Chen Hao's sharp perception shifted away from the restless Oriole, who was about to attack but was interrupted by the sudden surge in the aura of the four wild dragons. His pupils shrank. The four people in front of him were like transformers combined together, becoming a giant. The eldest brother was in the middle, the second brother was riding on his neck, and the third brother and fourth brother's bodies changed shape, wrapping around the eldest brother's chest and abdomen, as if they had become deformed monsters. "Ha! Brat, you're very strong. To be able to force us four wild dragons to such a state, even if you die, you should be proud. In this world, in the same realm, no one can force us brothers to use our trump cards." Pa! Pung, pung, pung. The eyes of the eldest brother, Wan Long, blossomed with an arrogant and cold light. He laughed sinisterly as he approached Chen Hao step by step. Every step he took caused the earth to tremble. The pressure and aura on his body also rose violently. "You're very powerful, Wan Long, can be sure that even in the temple, in the same realm, you can be called a king. You're the first to be able to find the life gate of the Sky Dragon 4 Division's formation in an instant in the Sky Dragon territory. Unfortunately, today, you must die." Pung, pung, pung. This is the true combination of the Sky Dragon 4 divisions. Defying the heavens and dying without a single one. I'd like to see how you find the life gate. How do you break it? Pa. Wan Long's voice was filled with boundless power. Just his laughter caused the surrounding palaces to automatically shine with protective light. The cultivators who were watching, those with weaker cultivation, even covered their ears. Even so, they felt as if their minds were about to fall into a trance. Is this the true power of the four wild dragons? Too strong. I didn't expect that no one in the temple had ever forced the four wild dragons to use their trump cards. No wonder he was conferred a title by the temple. The combination of the Sky Dragon 4 divisions. At this moment, if not for the suppression of the 9 seals of immortal sealing, he definitely has the strength of a heavenly immortal. Who can defeat him? Luckily, we didn't make a move. While countless cultivators were shocked, the Orioles broke out in cold sweat. When they saw the four wild dragons and Chen Hao heavily injured, they were about to take down Chen Hao. They believed that at this time, even if the four wild dragons were angry, they would not be able to stop them. Of course, they did not dare to do anything to the four wild dragons. At most, they would snatch away Chen Hao, who had great treasures. They were not as crazy and reckless as Chen Hao. But now, they felt the aura of the four wild dragons and were extremely shocked. If they had made a move just now, although they would not have died, they would have paid a heavy price. In such a state, even I would have to fight with my life on the line. I'd like to see how this guy will deal with it. The Oriole leader's eyes shone as he thought to himself. Chen Hao, who was already covered in blood, suddenly spat out another mouthful of blood under the increasingly terrifying pressure of the four wild dragons. His pupils constricted. Even he did not expect the four wild dragons to be so strong and to have such a terrifying trump card hidden. The four appearances of the Sky Dragon as one, the gate of life hidden within one's body. To have such a heaven-defying method, all living things in the world had a slim chance of survival. No divine ability, law, formation, or rune could truly kill. The one that escaped was the one that had a chance of survival. But now, this strange combination of the four wild dragons was able to defy the heavens and hide even the slightest chance of survival. Although it was not a true obliteration, it was no different from obliteration. This was because the gate of life was at the core of the four wild dragons. Apart from using absolute power to suppress and kill the other party, who could step into the gate of life? Moreover, everyone could clearly sense that the four wild dragons were now truly one. Their primordial spirits had completely fused into the body of their eldest brother, Wan Long. Their essence, qi, spirit, and true yuan had condensed into one. Apart from absolute power, it could be said that there was no flaw. How could he resist? Although Chen Hao was strong, His cultivation stage was only at the peak of the initial stage of the Earth's celestial stage. With his strong body, it was already quite heaven-defying for him to resist one of the 4 wild dragons with absolute power. It was simply impossible for him to resist the combined power of the 4 wild dragons. Their power is too much. Even if I use the unique skill of Tai Chi, I can't guide them. 4 ounces to 1,000 caddies. I need 4 ounces to succeed. What should I do? With a dignified look in his eyes, Chen Hao thought quickly. Since the battle of subduing Guanu, Chen Hao had never encountered such a dangerous situation. If he was alone, he would run away if he could not defeat them. But now, Chen Hao was very clear that once he ran away, the Oriole, hidden in the crowd, would definitely attack him. More importantly, how could Chen Shui, Long Ting, the 2 beautiful sisters, and his 2 masters, all escape? Boom! Oh! When the 4 wild dragons were about 10 meters away from Chen Hao, they violently attacked with their swords. The dragon's roar resounded through the 9 heavens, and the sword chi was like an ancient divine dragon descending to the world. Whoosh! A violent gale that could destroy the heavens and the earth, move mountains and fill seas, and a cold light condensed into the primordial divine dragon's golden claws that directly clawed at Chen Hao. The momentum was vast, lofty, and majestic, yet it didn't lose its fierce killing intent. To everyone's horror, this heaven-defying attack, which seized the fortune of heaven and earth, triggered the 9 heavens' divine thunder. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, and the heavens and the earth changed color. Everyone knew and believed that Chen Hao was doomed. How? Brother Hao. Brother Hao, Brother Chen Hao. How? At this moment, Chen Shui, Long Ting, the 2 beautiful sisters, Fan Donglu, Fan Dongxing, and Senior Immortal Yun Wei all cried out in horror. Chapter 717. However, even if they wanted to help, they didn't know where to start. It was even more impossible for them to help. Firstly, it was simply too late. Secondly, even if they could make it in time, it would be like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. In practically an instant, terror, the terror of losing Chen Hao, caused the eyes of all the women to be filled with tears, and despair caused them to go mad and furious. They intended to charge forward with their lives on the line. Even if they were moths flying into a flame, even if they were like mantises trying to stop a chariot, they were unable to watch helplessly as Chen Hao's body was shattered into pieces and his body and soul were obliterated. If they were going to die, then they would die together. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind was completely immersed in the battle, and he couldn't pay attention to the movements of Chen Shui and the others. A tragedy seemed to be about to unfold, not to mention Chen Hao. Once the women rushed forward, even Long Ting, who had a strong body, would be submerged by the attacks of the 4 wild dragons, let alone Chen Shui and the others. Everyone, calm down. Senior Immortal Han Mei seemed to have expected this scene. When the women, Fan Dongxing and Fan Donglu, were about to rush forward, she suddenly stood in front of them. He won't die so easily. If you go forward, you will die instead. A wave of aura that was not strong but profound was emitted from Han Mei Immortal Venerable. Her voice seemed to resound in the minds of Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the sisters. It was like the evening drum and morning bell, shaking their souls. Since the battle 3 years ago, Venerable Han Mei had a subtle change. Although it was very small, Chen Shui and the others who were familiar with her could feel it. However, they couldn't tell what kind of change it was. It seemed to be an internal change in the state of mind and soul. On the surface, she had become very quiet. But now, Senior Immortal Han Mei suddenly stopped the 4 women in front. Her aura was clearly very weak, but it gave Chen Shui and the other 3 a kind of pressure that they couldn't resist. That was a pressure that came from the depths of their souls. It forcibly made them stay where they were, unable to move forward. Apotheon Yun Wei, Fan Dongxing, and Fan Donglu were originally behind Chen Shui's group of 4. When the 4 of them stopped, they had no choice but to stop as well. However, when they heard Apotheon Han Mei's words, they felt completely different from Chen Shui's group of 4. Han Mei. Venerable Yun Wei looked at Venerable Han Mei, who grabbed her, with puzzlement and unwillingness in her eyes. Rumble. Although it took a long time to describe, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. It was also at this moment that Qin Hao, who seemed to have no other choice but to resist, finally moved. With a wild roar and a terrifying tremor from the earth, Chen Hao soared into the sky like a crazed primordial beast. Ah, is Chen Hao crazy? Isn't this courting death? No one had thought that the 4 berserk dragons, heavenly dragon 4 elephants unite into one would actually be heaven-defying enough to trigger heavenly punishment. What did this mean? This meant that this was definitely an ultimate technique that surpassed one's cultivation level. It could be said to be a perfect existence. There was no such thing as absolute perfection in this world. This was the heavenly Tao. The lightning punishment that was triggered now was something that the heavenly Tao could not tolerate. How heaven-defying was that? But what was even more unexpected was that Chen Hao actually rushed towards the 9 heavens' divine thunder. Alright. At this moment, venerable immortal Han Mei's eyes emitted 2 rays of light. There was a touch of excitement in the depths of her eyes as she shouted in a deep voice. The eyes of the Oriole, hidden in the crowd, were also brimming with vigor. She seemed to be deep in thought. Her beautiful delicate lips formed an O shape as if she had vaguely thought of something and grasped something. However, she immediately sneered. This is the best ending. The 4 elephants' heavenly dragon battle formation is an ultimate battle formation. When the 4 elephants unite into one, it will wipe out any chance of survival. Triggering the lightning punishment is inevitable. Even if the 4 berserk dragons are prepared, they will still be severely injured. As for Chen Hao, even if he catches the lightning and forcibly opens the life gate, he will not be able to escape death. Not to mention that the 4 berserk dragons have already condensed their attacks. Even the lightning punishment itself is enough to severely injure him. I really don't know if he is smart or an idiot. This Oriole leader thought quickly. She was none other than the saintess of the Misty Rain House, Menyang, who was kicked in the butt by Chen Hao. Among the crowd of onlookers, there were not many who could see her true nature. Moreover, she who was experienced, knowledgeable, and possessed formidable strength was one of them. Chen Hao's kick was an extraordinary humiliation to Menyang, and if it was possible, she would have shattered Chen Hao into pieces a long time ago. Unfortunately, even though she was renowned in the past and reigned supreme in the world, there wasn't a single person in the earthly immortal realm that she took a liking to. It was precisely because of this that she'd raised her head proudly in the primal secret realm and didn't have a true friend. Just like Moling Takshu and Bai Yen from all those years ago, they wouldn't be bewitched by the Tao manifestation immortal fruit's beauty at all. Who would be a fool to give without hope? Especially a young man who was able to stand at the peak of the human race. He was absolutely an intelligent person. Therefore, she had never had the chance to make a move during these 3 years. Because she was very clearly aware that Chen Hao's body was too strong. Moreover, he possessed a strange ultimate technique, causing her to be unable to see through Chen Hao's true combat strength. Moreover, Chen Hao had the extremely powerful Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the beautiful sisters by his side. No matter what, he wasn't someone she could go against alone. She was astute and would never do anything she wasn't confident in, especially in the earthly immortal realm. Because her name couldn't be tainted with any blemishes in such a low realm, she had been silent for 3 years. Firstly, it was to conceal her true identity and make friends with some formidable young geniuses to unite around her and make use of them. Secondly, it was to weaken the strength of Chen Hao's body as the 9 seals of immortal sealing were unsealed layer by layer. Today, she just happened to encounter the 4 berserk dragons attacking Chen Hao. Now, it was destined that one of them would die and 4 of them would be severely injured. The Tao manifestation immortal fruit core was already in her bag. As for not being able to kill Chen Hao with her own hands, she didn't have any regrets. Her image in the cultivation world was noble and upright. If she hadn't encountered the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core, which was very important to her, she would never have done something like snatching a Dharma treasure, let alone killing someone and snatching the treasure in front of everyone. Such an outcome was undoubtedly the best. It's useless. Turn around. Rumble, Seeing that Chen Hao was about to be killed, the 4 berserk dragons didn't expect that Chen Hao would dare to rush towards the lightning to avoid it. However, in the eyes of the 4 berserk dragons, this was just quenching thirst with poison and would only lead to an even more miserable death. Their combined primordial spirits were activated, and the extremely terrifying dragon sword radiance suddenly soared into the sky with a whistle and charged towards Chen Hao again. Rumble! Divine lightning from the 9 heavens struck, and Chen Hao's entire body was wrapped in lightning. His black hair danced wildly, and his blood-soaked body radiated crystal light in all directions. Lightning circled around him, and even though every inch of his skin was charred black and cracked, his aura instantly rose to a terrifying level. Runes appeared on the surface of his body from inside out, and the profound, majestic, and complete aura of the heavenly Tao laws was released from his body at the same time. His eyes turned into an ocean of lightning, deep and vast. Why didn't I think of this? Hu Mainyang muttered in shock. Chapter 7:18. Thunder punishment, no matter which world or space it was in, was an existence that transcended heaven and earth. It was a complete law of the great Tao, an existence that could break all seals. Even the powerful 9 restrictions of immortal sealing would dissipate within the range of the thunder punishment. This meant that Chen Hao would be able to escape the restraints of the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing and instantly return to his peak state, even though he would have to bear the bombardment of the lightning. In such a situation, for ordinary cultivators, or to be exact, for cultivators weaker than the 4 wild dragons, it was undoubtedly suicide. But for Chen Hao, it was the best choice. Because of Chen Hao's powerful physical body, as long as the 4 berserk dragons could withstand it, he would be able to. If the 4 berserk dragons couldn't withstand it, he might be able to withstand it. At most, they would just perish together, which was much better than waiting for death to come. Moreover, Chen Hao could merge with the lightning, and his attacks could be combined with the power of the lightning. And now, Chen Hao seemed to have merged with the lightning and transformed into a god of thunder punishment. This was obviously beyond the expectations of Hu Mainyang and everyone else. For heaven and earth. For heaven and earth. For me. Break for me. Just as everyone was shocked, surprised, and puzzled, not understanding why Chen Hao, who had been severely injured by the lightning, suddenly seemed to merge with the lightning, Chen Hao's emotionless voice suddenly resounded through the 9 heavens. Even the deafening thunder couldn't cover up his voice. Every word and pause was like the sound of the great Tao, resonating with heaven and earth, dancing with all laws, piercing through the sky and shaking people's hearts. When the word break bloomed like spring thunder, Chen Hao pressed down with his palm. The great void handprint whizzed out, containing the endless power of lightning, like a god of thunder descending with divine might. Rumble! Rumble! The great thunder punishment handprint collided with the dragon-shaped sword light of the 4 wild dragons, and an explosion resounded through heaven and earth, causing a black hole crack to appear in the void. A spatial crack. Fortunately, this was the holy land of experience and inheritance condensed by ancient mighty figures. Even the collapse of the universe didn't destroy it. Although the energy of Chen Hao and the 4 wild dragons broke the spatial barrier, it automatically healed in an instant. Even so, it still left everyone dumbfounded. The dragon sword radiance was like a firefly competing with the sun and moon at this moment. There was no suspense at all as it was shattered by Chen Hao's grand void handprint. The mountain-like giant hand, with a brilliant heavenly might, came crashing down with a loud crash. Chi. The 4 wild dragons that had merged into one let out a terrified cry. They had thought that victory was within their grasp, but they did not expect that the situation would suddenly reverse. They could not even escape even if they wanted to. They tried their best to block the giant hand that was pressing down like a mountain, but it was completely useless. Before the giant hand reached them, the power of thunder that it contained had already covered their bodies with the light of thunder and blue flames. Rumble! The earth suddenly shook violently. Many stunned cultivators were bounced into the sky by the violent rebounding force. They exclaimed in surprise, but their eyes were fixed on the giant hand-shaped pit that appeared at the center of the battle in horror. Everything within a radius of 1,000 feet had turned into pitch-black scorched earth, devoid of all life. The 4 berserk dragons are dead. Oh my God, is that even possible? Is that even possible? How can he be so strong? Is he still an earth immortal? The surroundings were silent. Only the sound of gasps and horrifying sighs could be heard. Even the despairing Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the others were stunned for a moment. They stared blankly at Chen Hao, who was floating in the void like the god of thunder, and were inexplicably excited. This was their man. The man who had always been creating miracles. Every time they thought that he could not do it, he would show them a freakishly powerful ability, which proved that he could do it. Everyone looked up at the figure in the void, surrounded by thunder and lightning, and their hearts were in turmoil. At this moment, Hu Mainyang and the other Orioles did not dare to make a sound, let alone make a move. It was no different from suicide. But Hu Mainyang and the others knew that when the thunder and lightning disappeared and Chen Hao fell, it would be time for them to make a move. When Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the sisters were sure that the 4 berserk dragons had been annihilated, they did not immerse themselves in surprise for long. At the same time, they released a strong fighting spirit and rushed to Chen Hao. Previously, Chen Hao had warned them, so they had known that the Orioles were coming. They had not been able to stop the 4 berserk dragons with Chen Hao, and Chen Hao had almost died. They had tasted the fear of losing all hope, and they did not want to experience it again. If they wanted to touch Chen Hao, they would have to step over their dead bodies. But whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the thunder punishment, which should have subsided quickly, did not disappear. Instead, there was an even more terrifying tremor, which spread wildly at a speed of 1,000 miles in an instant. Heavenly punishment. How could this be? Just by the aura, all the cultivators who had experienced the heavenly punishment knew what was going on. But because they knew it, they were surprised, especially those who knew some information about Chen Hao. They were even more puzzled. Before he stepped into the primitive mystic area, he was only at the initial stage of the Earth celestial stage. How could he trigger the heavenly punishment? At this moment, he did not use any heaven-defying skills like the 4 berserk dragons. The only possibility was that he was about to become a heaven celestial. However, in the primitive mystic area, which was many times more powerful than the vast universe galaxy, in less than 20 years, his aura was at the initial stage of the Earth celestial stage. How could he have crossed a small stage and become a heaven celestial? It can't be the heavenly punishment for becoming a heaven celestial. He must have been affected by the thunder punishment just now, and his aura, is heaven-defying. It must be so. Yes, I heard that the daughter of the 4th master of the vast universe galaxy, the invincible golden celestial king Yi Xian, after entering the human celestial stage, would trigger the heavenly punishment for every small stage she advanced. Could this Chen Hao be comparable to the golden celestial king Yi Xian? How could this be? I told you, because of the thunder punishment just now. No matter how strong he is, he can't be compared to the golden celestial king Yi Xian. When Yi Xian was in the Daluo Golden Wonderland, many Hongmeng supreme beings were no match for her. If it weren't for her mysterious disappearance, I'm afraid she would have surpassed her father and become a real legend. Before the golden celestial stage, she set countless records, and no one has broken them. It's a pity. If she was here, our vast universe galaxy would have no problem dominating the top 10 galaxies. How could Chen Hao compare to her? Yi Xian, the invincible golden celestial king, was a real invincible golden celestial. When she stepped into the Daluo Golden Wonderland, not to mention those in the same stage, even the Hongmeng supreme beings didn't dare to challenge her. She was the first genius since ancient times. Unfortunately, before she reached the peak of her life, she suddenly vanished without a trace, never to appear in vast universe galaxy again. At that time, even the 4th generation master of vast universe galaxy, her father, was the strongest powerhouse under the heavens and was also known as the strongest master of vast universe galaxy since ancient times. He had used his own body to form a second world, but he still hadn't been able to find her. The only thing he could confirm was that her longevity tablet was still intact. As for what it was now, no one knew. Retreat. Why aren't you retreating? Someone shouted. Many people who were still immersed in shock and discussion didn't dare to hesitate and quickly retreated. Let's retreat too. Don't worry about him. Celestial Venerable Han Mei said after glancing at the deep pit under Chen Hao's body. After that, she pulled Chen Shui and took the lead to retreat into the distance. The energy of heaven and earth gathered crazily, and the fluctuations spread for tens of thousands of miles. Dark clouds rolled and strong winds filled the air. The aura of the mysterious and powerful heavenly Tao law became more and more terrifying. Not long after, the cultivators who were running away madly all revealed excitement and shock in their eyes. Then, they soared into the sky and flew thousands of kilometers in the blink of an eye. When they reached thousands of miles away, they suddenly fell from the void. Within thousands of miles, the confinement of the 9 seals of immortal sealing disappeared. No one could describe the shock in their hearts. Everyone concluded that Chen Hao, who risked universal condemnation to kill Moling Takshu, Bai Yan, and Chen Lin 3 years ago, was far more terrifying than they imagined. Many cultivators returned to the edge of thousands of miles and flew into the air. They looked at Chen Hao, who was at the core of the thunder punishment, and their minds were completely integrated into the terrifying heavenly Tao law. This was a rare opportunity for everyone. It was also at this time that 4 streams of light condensed into one body suddenly flew out from the huge pit under Chen Hao. They were as fast as lightning and disappeared into the sky. Even Chen Hao revealed a look of surprise. Unfortunately, he was shrouded in the aura of the heavenly punishment and couldn't spare any energy to chase after them. Rumble. The 9 heavens' divine thunder finally condensed and descended from the sky. Chen Hao, who was already surrounded by lightning, didn't deliberately resist but chose to resist it head-on. Chen Hao's eyes shone with excitement and madness. Even he didn't expect to have such an opportunity. Just as some cultivators guessed, his heavenly punishment wasn't the heavenly punishment of stepping into the celestial stage, but the heavenly punishment of advancing to a small stage. Moreover, it was caused by the 4 wild dragons' heaven-defying thunder punishment. The area of the 4 wild dragons' heavenly punishment allowed him to temporarily transcend the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing and return to his most powerful state. Over the past 20 years, especially in the area of the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing, he couldn't suppress it anymore. Especially when the 4 wild dragons' heavenly punishment descended, he integrated himself into the thunderbolts in the state of, I am heaven and earth are me. At that moment, the celestial fruit of Tao manifestation that he had swallowed and nourished in his dantian was like a sponge absorbing water, crazily devouring the terrifying heavenly Tao law in the thunderbolts. The heavenly punishment descended, crack, rumble, the destructive thunderbolts descended one after another. After 4 hours, the shaking of heaven and earth disappeared and the dark clouds dispersed. The aura of the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing swept over every inch of space again. The medium stage of the Earth's celestial stage. Phew. It's a pity that I didn't even have time to comprehend it. The remaining power of the heavenly punishment nourished Chen Hao and restored him to his peak state instantly. The huge injuries on his body also disappeared without a trace. However, the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing that followed didn't allow Chen Hao to experience the power of the medium stage of the Earth's celestial stage. The only thing he could feel was that his body and spirit were unprecedentedly full and powerful. Chapter 719. The lightning energy surrounding Chen Hao had yet to dissipate when a strong wave of heaven and earth energy swept over from afar. What's going on? Chen Hao was surprised that there was more than one wave. It seemed to be coming from all directions at the same time. Moreover, the waves were stronger than the wave of heaven and earth energy that he had triggered. Could it be that my heavenly punishment has caused other cultivators to undergo their tribulations? Oh no, This must be the heavenly punishment for ascending to a heaven celestial. Chen Hao's mind raced as he thought of a possibility. Most of the cultivators who had entered the primitive mystic realm were at the peak of the advanced earth celestial stage. The area that he had triggered the heavenly punishment earlier was extremely large. All the cultivators within that area had temporarily escaped the restraints of the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing. After 20 years of accumulation and improvement, it was not strange that these cultivators at the peak of the advanced earth celestial stage could trigger the heavenly punishment. Buzz. In just a breath's time, Chen Hao felt the suppression of the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing disappear again. If whom Mainyang and the others have ascended to the heaven celestial stage, it'll be dangerous. Even with the restrictions of the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing, it'll be difficult for me to deal with them. I have to leave quickly. Otherwise, I'll definitely become a target for everyone. When he thought of this, Chen Hao did not dare to hesitate. Without the suppression of the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing, Chen Hao's powerful soul perception spread out and instantly locked onto Chen Shui and the others who were thousands of miles away. He quickly flew over. Master! At this moment, Old God's voice appeared in Chen Hao's mind. Is the Tao manifestation celestial fruit in your dantian? Yes. Old God, this is the space of the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing. At this moment, because someone has triggered the heavenly punishment, it's temporarily unaffected. Do you have a way to resist the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing? Chen Hao communicated in his mind as he flew. My ability will improve as you improve, Master. Moreover, the 9 restrictions of celestial sealing is also a form of training for you. That's not right. How could this place trigger? Gasp. Hearing Old God's doubts, Chen Hao opened his mind completely and became one with Old God. Otherwise, it would be troublesome to explain. So that's how it is. Master, take out the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core and put it back into your mind. This is a precious treasure. It will bring unimaginable benefits to your future cultivation. Even the previous owners didn't have the opportunity to obtain it. So powerful? Chen Hao was slightly surprised. Although he knew that the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core was a rare treasure, he did not expect that even the Old God would hold it in such high esteem. Of course. Right now, it's just a fruit core. Even if it's the lowest grade, once it matures, it'll be a heaven-defying existence. The speed at which you comprehend the laws of the heavens will increase by an astonishing amount. In your dantian, it'll take 1,000 years of nourishment before it can take root and germinate. However, if it's implanted in your mind, I have a way to accelerate its growth. But Chen Hao replied. He opened his mouth and spat out a sparkling and translucent light, which was absorbed into the space between his eyebrows. How? Brother Hao! In an instant, Chen Hao met up with Chen Shui and the others, who were flying toward him. At this moment, all the cultivators were in a mess. Within a radius of a few thousand miles, at least 100 people were triggering the heavenly punishment, and the number was still increasing. Judging from their auras, it could be determined that these were the heavenly punishment of those who had stepped into the heaven celestial stage. Countless cultivators who had not triggered the heavenly punishment were frantically scattering in all directions. Some of the cultivators who had triggered the heavenly punishment had to quickly disperse, in case the heavenly punishment overlapped and they could not bear it. In the beginning, no one had thought of such a scene, but it was really happening. It was foreseeable that in the near future, all the cultivators who had been promoted to the heaven celestial stage here would dominate the 9 celestial sealing restrictions and run amok. We have to leave quickly. Once Hu Mainyang and a few other experts reach the heaven celestial stage, it's impossible to estimate how powerful they will be. Chen Hao looked at the crowd and said directly, I just reached the medium stage of the Earth celestial stage. Is it Hu Mainyang? Chen Shui asked, frowning. Although Chen Hao had warned her and the others, Chen Shui's special ability was more powerful than Chen Hao's, so she could not determine who it was. Over there, in the direction of the most terrifying aura, she should be the one triggering the heavenly punishment. Chen Hao looked up in a direction and said, I knew this woman would not give up easily. This time, she was well prepared. If the 4 wild dragons hadn't disturbed her plan, it's hard to say what the result would be. After she reached the heaven celestial stage, she will be even more powerful. Chen Hao's words made Chen Shui, Long Ting, and the others frown. They knew very well that if Chen Hao said it was dangerous, it must be dangerous. Otherwise, according to Chen Hao's character, even if he had a 20% chance of winning, he would not say such words. Obviously, Hu Meinyang was extremely powerful. However, at this moment, Venerable Han Mei pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "Master has a suggestion. The Tao manifestation immortal fruit core is a rare treasure, and Hu Meinyang, with her innate Tao foundation, will definitely not give it up. However, she won't go on a killing spree without any scruples. She's only targeting you. Moreover, after this matter, she won't be the only one. I'm afraid all the experts in the 10 great clans who know the true value of the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core will fight for it." Yes, Master is right. The value of the Tao manifestation immortal fruit core seems to be far beyond our imagination, Chen Hao said with a frown. Therefore, Master suggests that we train separately. Venerable Han Mei stared at Chen Hao and said in a deep voice, "Separate? Little Shui, listen to Mother." Venerable Han Mei waved her hand to stop Chen Shui and continued, "We won't be of any use if we stay with Hao. Instead, we'll be a burden to him. Just like today, if it was him, he could have escaped immediately. Even if it was a risky battle, he could have retreated at the right time. However, because of us. Master, you can't think like that. No matter what, we can't be separated. This place is too dangerous, and I don't want any accidents to happen to you." Chen Hao said. Venerable Han Mei shook her head and said, "Staying with you is the most dangerous thing for us. Separating is a good thing for you and for us. I believe many disciples of the Sacred Palace are aware of Little Shui, Huan Huan, and Lei's identities. At least in the human race, no one would dare to kill them easily. Later on, when the 10 great clans gather, they'll definitely form an alliance. After all, one person's strength is limited. As for you, you can be fearless after separating. Master knows you can't let us go, but you must know that as long as you're strong enough, you'll be the best guardian for us. If you bring us along, not only will we hinder your progress, but we'll also die prematurely. High and lonely, walk the great Tao alone." This, well said. High and lonely, walk the great Tao alone. But I didn't expect Venerable Han Mei to have such awareness. Mother is right. Chen Shui pondered for a moment, bit her lips, and stared at Chen Hao. Brother Hao, Andy is right. For the time being, let's separate. After breaking through the 9 restrictions of Immortal Sealing, it won't be long before we can meet again. Long Ting also said. The sisters nodded. Fan Dongxing and Fan Donglu naturally didn't say much. Although they really wanted to be with Chen Hao, the current situation was just like what Venerable Han Mei said. Chen Hao had almost become the target of public criticism. If there was a slight mishap, they would die with him. Separating was indeed the best way. But then take care of yourselves. Try not to fight for magic treasures or whatever. With me here, we won't lack anything. If you encounter something that you can't solve, remember to look for me. I believe my general direction will be constantly transmitted to your ears. Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a touch of arrogance and confidence. Before everyone could react, Venerable Han Mei frowned and said, "How? Oh, you also have to restrain yourself a little. If you can avoid killing, try not to kill, especially within the human race. The path of the strong doesn't have to be stepped on bones. Too hard and it's easy to break. Those who want to kill me, I will definitely kill them. Master, you don't have to worry about this. There are at least thousands of years in this primitive secret realm. There's no need to worry about anything. Want to use your identity and background to suppress me? Dream on. If it's a competition of father, I won't be weaker than them. At most, when we go out, we'll fight." Chen Hao said. Competition of father? Venerable Han Mei frowned and was puzzled. Our background must be very strong. All right, since it's decided, then I'll go first. Take care of yourselves. Chen Hao's gaze swept across everyone. While there was no suppression from the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing, he suddenly turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the sky. Competition of father. There are not many who can compete with your father. No one realized that deep in Venerable Han Mei's eyes were playful. It's a pity that I'm only a wisp of primordial spirit. In here, you can only rely on yourself. Triggering heaven's punishment at a small realm, it's really out of my expectations. Also, your physical body's self-evolution, could it really be related to her? Venerable Han Mei shook her head and looked at Chen Shui and the rest who were still looking in the direction Chen Hao disappeared. She said, "Don't look anymore. When he leaves, he will definitely soar into the sky. We've already been imprisoned for 20 years. If we want to catch up with his footsteps, we can only work harder in cultivation." Chen Shui and the rest replied. "Han Mei, why do I feel that you're strange? Am I? Yunwei, I just figured out some things. We're not weak, we've just lost the heart of an expert. If you didn't think of yourself as a weakling, how could you not think of these problems?" "That's true. Mother, did you comprehend some secret technique?" At this time, Chen Shui suddenly remembered that when Chen Hao fought with the 4 wild dragons, her mother had given her an inviolable will and asked. "Yes, and?" Previously, when Brother Hao fought with the 4 wild dragons, Yes, Master, we also felt it. That's right. Master hasn't spoken much during this period of time, so I've comprehended something. However, it's only a transformation of the mind and soul, and it's not enough to produce true power. Alright, now that so many people are triggering heaven's punishment, hurry up and comprehend it. This is a rare opportunity. Venerable Han Mei had long known that the abnormality from before would be questioned by the girls, so she said calmly. Chapter 720. 10 hours later. What bad luck. The 4 wild dragons are so arrogant in the divine temple, but they can't even kill that kid. Damn it. When Lan Feng saw the 4 wild dragons being smashed into the ground by Chen Hao's giant void palm, he didn't hesitate and ran away. Although he felt the violent tremors of heaven and earth, he didn't dare to pay attention to it. He had a feeling that Chen Hao had seen through him. Although he knew it was impossible, he didn't have the courage to take the risk. The Tao manifestation celestial fruit core was already painful enough for him to kill himself. If he let Chen Hao rob him of his treasures again, he would die of anger. After running for 6 hours, Lan Feng finally slowed down and caught his breath. The further I go, the fewer forbidden areas and cities there are, and the more cultivators there are. If I meet that guy again, I won't be able to resist. He's too strong. Although Lan Feng didn't want to admit it, he knew that the 4 wild dragons were not weak, but Chen Hao was too abnormal. Suddenly, a few energy waves were felt. Who's there? Lan Feng was shocked. He unsheathed his sword and looked back and forth. The night sky was clear, and there was nothing suspicious in the wilderness. Motherfucker, Lan Feng, am a disciple of the Divine Hall. How could I be so easily frightened? Phew. Let's find a cave to rest first. Although we can't fly in 10 hours, we've traveled at least a few 100,000 li. That brat can't possibly follow? Who's there? Lan Feng was horrified. If the energy waves he felt just now were an illusion, then the eerie laughter was definitely not an illusion. Don't play tricks. I'm Lan Feng, a disciple of the Divine Temple, the #1 genius of the Lan family. The eerie laughter was erratic, sometimes behind him, sometimes in front of him, sometimes in the east, sometimes in the west. Lan Feng couldn't lock on to the aura of the other party. Without the 9 celestial seals, any Earth celestial stage expert could do that. No one could move so fast. This meant that the eerie laughter definitely did not come from a single person. Lan Feng held his sword in one hand and nervously touched the bag on his back with the other. His hair stood on end as he sternly said, "I don't care who you are. If you want to rob me, then I'm telling you, don't even think about it. With the token, any records will be sent back to the Alliance Center." Really? A figure that seemed to have completely blended into the night suddenly appeared in front of Lan Feng. His eyes shone with a dark blue light that resembled the wisps as he asked provocatively. When Lan Feng saw this figure, his heart skipped a beat. The phantom race? Boss, this should be a fat sheep, right? A human disciple of the Holy Palace. TSK, that's a pretty big bag. There should be a lot of good stuff in there. Another figure appeared behind Lan Feng and said excitedly. His voice was filled with the innate eeriness of the phantom race. Ignorant. Fourth brother, it's not that I want to nag at you, but although this kid is a disciple of the Divine Hall, his strength is only average. Look at him, he doesn't have the demeanor of a strong person at all. Did he piss himself? Just like that, what good stuff could there be? But it's better than nothing. Another figure appeared. Killing a human disciple of the Holy Palace is worth at least 1,000 contribution points. It doesn't matter whether there are treasures or not. The first phantom race cultivator who appeared, the leader of the four, said eerily. All right, let's do it. How dare you? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Fight me one-on-one if you have the guts. Lan Feng was frightened and frustrated. If he had known that he would encounter the phantom race here, he would not have dared to leave alone. However, there was no use in regretting it now. He could only think of a way to escape this calamity. Although he could not sense the aura of these four phantom race cultivators, he knew that they would not be weak if they dared to come here and kill a human, especially since they did not even use their most proficient assassination technique. This was enough to show that they had the strength to kill him in a direct confrontation. One-on-one? Sure, you can fight us four brothers one-on-one. Boom! Four phantom race cultivators have invaded. Save me. Lan Feng was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. However, he did not want to be killed just like that. He gathered all the energy in his body and shouted with all his might. At the same time, he raised his sword and charged at the one he thought was the weakest. Buzz. Dazzling golden light condensed into mysterious runes that appeared on the seemingly ordinary sword in Lan Feng's hand. In an instant, a majestic and vigorous sword light as heavy as a mountain rose into the air. What a powerful sword! Fourth brother, be careful. It's too late. Boom. Fuck your mother. The fourth brother did not expect that Lan Feng, who had been scared out of his wits like a bear, would suddenly explode with such a powerful strength. Due to his carelessness, he was actually sent flying by Lan Feng's incomparably powerful sword light. If not for his fast reaction, he might have even died. This fucker, he was an expert at pretending to be weak. Chase. You want to run? Dream on. Hiss hiss hiss. Four figures instantly blended into the darkness at an astonishing speed. Save me. There are only four phantom race cultivators. I'm Lan Feng, a disciple of the Holy Palace. Whoever saves me, I'll give you a sage artifact. Lan Feng's strength was not weak, and he was blessed with amazing providence. He had obtained ancient artifacts and spirit herbs by himself, so he was definitely stronger than any team, even though he did not have the opportunity to enter any of the core palaces. Even so, these four people were not people Lan Feng could deal with. What was more tragic was that under the 9 restrictions of Immortal Sealing, the human team leader's token could not send out a distress signal. They could only shout. In this case, how to shout was very important. Fortunately, there were only 4 of them, and their strength was not so strong that he could not fight against them. Lan Feng only needed to tell them the truth and promised a sage artifact as a reward. He believed that as long as there was a small team within 1,000 miles, they would definitely come to his rescue. However, the probability of encountering a cultivator in this boundless wilderness was very low. The leader, who was the fastest, suddenly stabbed out with his spear when he saw Lan Feng entering his attack range. A violent and fierce spear dragon swept out. Boom! Lan Feng backhanded his sword and spat out a mouthful of blood. Under the huge impact, his body suddenly sped up again. Very good. This kid's sword is extremely powerful. It's stronger than any of the treasures we've obtained. the leader said excitedly when he sensed the profoundness of Lan Feng's sword. Full force. What? At this moment, to the surprise of the 4 spirit race cultivators, Lan Feng, who was frantically fleeing, actually opened the bag on his back. Taking advantage of the short time he was in the air, he took out a pair of sparkling silver battle boots and quickly put them on. When he landed and bounced up again, 2 bright silver runes flashed under his feet, and his speed increased by 10%. This was the space of the 9 restrictions of Immortal Ceiling. To be able to increase one's speed by 10% and activate runes, it was definitely a sage artifact level treasure. The 4 of them were both surprised and delighted. Lan Feng jumped up again and took out a silver soft armor and put it on. After that, he put it on every time he was in the air. After a few times, this guy had turned into a silver armor. Even his head was equipped. Moreover, when the armor took shape, silver light rose from his body. Runes surrounded him, and his speed increased by another 10%. Set bonus. It's actually a sage set. We're rich. The 4 spirit race cultivators were completely excited. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, it was as if they had taken an aphrodisiac, and their speed increased crazily. Lan Feng had never thought that wearing the awesome sage set that he had obtained through a fortuitous encounter in order to increase his chances of survival would cause the greed of the 4 to erupt. Not only did he fail to shake them off, but he also accelerated their speed. The surroundings were completely silent. No human cultivator responded. In the face of the threat of death, Lan Feng completely threw away his fear. There was only one thought in his mind: run. Run as fast as he could. The 4 spirit race cultivators were clearly a team with great teamwork. The second brother bounced up and the leader pushed with all his strength. Like a cannonball, they flew through the air and instantly flew over Lan Feng's head. With a wave of their hands, they unleashed a terrifying sword strike. The blue sword light lit up the sky. Endless killing intent forced Lan Feng to spit out blood and swing his sword to meet it. Boom. In this confrontation, Lan Feng had the protection and enhancement of the sage set, so he was not injured. However, he was unable to use the force to increase his speed and escape. He knew that he would most likely lose his life here today. At this moment, Lan Feng was slightly regretful. He would rather be robbed by the demon, Chen Hao, than lose his life. After all, although Chen Hao had robbed him many times, he had never taken his life. This thought flashed past his mind. Lan Feng stopped and looked at the 4 spirit race cultivators who had surrounded him. His battle-intent sword. Fuck your mother. Run again? Obediently hand over all your Dharma treasures, and I'll leave you with an intact corpse. Fuck your mother's bullshit. Even if I die, I'll drag one of you down with me. Come at me if you have the guts. Boom. Dazzling silver light lit up the space within a radius of 1,000 feet. Lan Feng's aura surged. In this hopeless situation, his pride as a disciple of the Divine Temple and the dignity of a human cultivator made him angry. However, he did not attack directly. Instead, he quickly took out a box from his bag, opened it, and took out a pill the size of a fist. He swallowed it in one swift motion. Even so, the pill gave off a strong medicinal fragrance. The 4 spirit race cultivators were stunned. How could this weak disciple of the Divine Temple have so many treasures? Could there be more treasures in such a big bag? Even an idiot could tell that the pill was a supreme-grade pill left behind from ancient times. Its medicinal strength was immeasurable. How valuable could it be? However, Lan Feng, whose eyes were filled with madness, actually swallowed it in one gulp. This was clearly a suicidal act. Boom. Roar. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, a majestic and terrifying energy burned in Lan Feng's body like a raging fire. He did not dare to use his mind to refine it. Even if he absorbed it naturally, he felt like his body would explode. However, in this situation where he was bound to die, he had no other choice. A beast-like roar rushed from his dantian to his throat. It exploded and reverberated through the sky. I should have attacked earlier. What a waste of such a good ancient pill. A figure who was watching Lan Feng and the four spirit race cultivators from afar said gloomily after seeing this scene. Chapter 721. Die, all of you! Sizzle, 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 sizzle. The surging strength nearly caused Lan Feng to explode. He was unable to control this energy with his mind, much less condense any sort of ultimate skill rune. All he could do was send out pure energy from the ancient treasure sword. Lan Feng continuously slashed out with his sword, not even panting for breath. Thick sword energy spouted out for 1,000 feet, crisscrossing and slicing in all directions. Let's get out of the way first. Don't fight him head-on for now. We don't have to do anything. This guy will explode and die. That's right. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. What an idiot. An ancient pill the size of a fist can be preserved until now. It must be a supreme holy grade pill. Let alone an earth celestial, even Daluo Jinxian would have to refine it bit by bit. He's courting death. Damn it, what a waste. Yes, yes, I'm so heartbroken. Hiss, 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 hiss. Faced with the pure and violent energy attack, the four cultivators of the Ghost Clan didn't dare to fight head-on. They blended into the darkness and retreated. Their voices were erratic, but they didn't panic at all. The Ghost Clan's talent was to hide and assassinate. At the same stage, it was difficult for cultivators of other clans to capture their aura. This was also the reason why they dared to enter the territory of the human clan to hunt cultivators when the other clans were gathering. Worm, come out and fight with me if you have the guts. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Boom, boom, boom. Lan Feng roared angrily. His eyes were bloodshot. He had risked his life to swallow that pill. He was prepared to die, and he wanted to drag someone down with him. Powerful, indeed, he became several times more powerful in an instant. However, he didn't expect that the cunning Ghost Clan wouldn't give him a chance to fight head-on. He had to admit that this was a very sad thing. Only an idiot would fight with you. Wouldn't it feel good to watch you explode and die? Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. This guy's strength is ordinary, but he has a lot of treasures and good luck. If we kill him, maybe we can have good luck? Sizzle, 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 sizzle. Tisk, how pitiful. It looks like he'll explode in a few minutes, right? That's right. Lan Feng was like a mad beast. He chased and attacked wildly, but it was all in vain. He couldn't even touch the corner of his opponent's clothes. I don't want to die. I can't accept this. Sensing the increasingly turbulent and violent energy in his dantian and body, Lan Feng madly brandished the sword in his hand. However, the speed at which he released energy was still unable to catch up with the vigorous medicinal efficacy of the pill. His fate seemed to be slowly walking towards a situation where his body would explode and he wouldn't be able to kill a single opponent in the end. Hiss! A figure brushed past like a gentle breeze. Under the clear night sky, even though it was impossible to completely conceal his figure, Lan Feng's body was radiating a dazzling light that resembled the sun and moon in the sky, attracting the attention of the four Spectre Clan cultivators. However, no one noticed his arrival. Mountains, rivers, grass, and gravel were all used as props to conceal his figure. His footsteps were light and agile, and his movements were ethereal. With his heaven-defying physical body, he was only as tall as a 5- or 6-year-old child. He was like a cat, and as fast as lightning. Compared to the talents of the Spectre Clan, he was not inferior at all. Chen Hao had no choice but to make a move. Chen Hao couldn't bear to see the adorable son of destiny, Lan Feng, die just like that. Not to mention the Dao manifestation immortal fruit core, the treasures he had looted previously were no less than what he had obtained in the core palace. How could he die just like that? Even if they were thousands of miles apart by fate, it wasn't enough to describe the fate between Chen Hao and Lan Feng. This is the leader of the four. He's the strongest. I'll start with you first. Under the night sky, Chen Hao's eyes shone with a faint golden light, just like Sun Wukong's fiery eyes of truth. No, to be precise, it was the fiery eyes of truth. The Spectre Clan's innate ability to conceal themselves was completely useless under his heavenly eye. Just like Hu Mainyang and the other fellows who wanted to be the Oriole, Chen Hao could see through them directly. In this situation, Chen Hao's heavenly eye had been restored to its original state when he used the fifth seal of the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing. Unfortunately, these 4 Spectre clan men were not as good-looking as a naked Hu Manyang. Of course, Chen Hao wasn't in the mood to admire Hu Manyang back then. Hiss, hiss, hiss. In an instant, Chen Hao, who was as small and agile as a child, was close to the leader of the Spectre clan. At this moment, Chen Hao held his breath and slowed down. His aura was completely concealed as he approached step by step. But what a waste! The energy contained in this elixir is too terrifying. The leader of the 4 didn't notice Chen Hao's approach at all. He watched as the frenzied Lan Feng attacked everywhere to vent his energy, but his body continued to expand like a balloon being blown up little by little. He couldn't help but feel pity for the elixir. Yes, it's really a pity. It should be at least a supreme-grade saint-level elixir. It's definitely a treasure. An equally sinister voice suddenly sounded behind the leader. Isn't that obvious? Supreme-grade saint-level. Who is it? The leader suddenly realized something and turned around in horror. Rumble. Swish. The leader of the Spectre clan was about to gather his energy when he turned around. However, he didn't see anything in front of him. He didn't even have time to swing his sword. An extremely violent pressure and energy suddenly appeared. His eyes widened. He only had time to see a cold glint before his glabella was pierced. Then, accompanied by his scream, his head exploded like a watermelon. Who is it? Boom, boom. The other 3 spirit race cultivators were stunned by the sudden explosion of their boss's head. They only saw a small figure that looked like a dwarf, moving as fast as lightning, streaking across the sky like a stream of light. He was holding onto a treasured sword that was even longer than his body as he lunged toward the second of the 3 spirit race cultivators. The petite figure stretched and stretched in the void and suddenly transformed into the slender body of a young man. At the same time, a mountainous and ocean-like pressure descended. Swish! Sword light poured down like a long river and the setting sun. It cut through the sky like the Milky Way pouring down from the 9th heaven. Ah! You're courting death! Swish! While the second leader's hair stood on end, he felt a strong threat of death. At this moment he couldn't care less about hiding. He gathered his energy crazily to meet the unavoidable sword light. At the same time, he retreated quickly, trying to buy some time for the other 2 brothers to come to his rescue. He knew very well that the person who could kill their leader silently was definitely an expert that he couldn't fight against. However, all of his thoughts stopped here. The dazzling and sharp sword light destroyed his sword light like a hot knife through butter. It cut through the top of his head and pierced through his glabella, splitting him into 2. The feeling of being unable to focus on his left and right eyes was still there. Then he was drowned by the terrifying explosion and endless darkness. His body and soul were destroyed. Oh! Horrified and shrill screams erupted from the mouths of the 3rd and 4th leaders who were charging over. The 2 of them stopped abruptly, their legs trembling. They turned around abruptly and tried to escape. However, their legs were weak. Even with all their strength, they couldn't reach their usual peak speed. It was too terrifying. If killing their leader was a sneak attack, then what about killing their second leader? They couldn't even block a single blow. Moreover, the time it took for the other party to rush from their leader to their second leader's position was astonishing. Die. Swish. Swish. Chen Hao held their leader's golden spear and his sword in one hand. His body was bent like a bow, and his body trembled with a bang. The golden spear and sword contained terrifying energy and mysterious fluctuations of runes as they cut through the void. 2 dull explosions sounded, and the 2 people fell to the ground with screams. Oh! Boom! Boom! Senior, save me. I'm Lan Feng, a disciple of the Holy Temple. If you can save my life, I, Lan Feng, will definitely reward you handsomely. The Lan family will also reward you handsomely. The crazy Lan Feng didn't lose his mind. Like a god of death, he killed the 4 ghost clan experts who had forced him into a dead end in an instant. It was too shocking. Such an expert was definitely one of the top experts of the human clan. Although he couldn't think of anyone with such strength, if this person wanted to save him, he would definitely be able to do it. In Lan Feng's opinion, this old man with a face full of wrinkles must be a senior who couldn't break through the Earth's celestial stage but had lived for countless years and raised his strength to the limit of the Earth's celestial stage. Although this kind of person wasn't a genius, he could dominate his own stage. You're welcome. Lan Feng, right? Old man has heard of you. Stop now and take off your armor. Take off all your clothes. Old man can directly suppress and extract the elixir from your Danton. Senior, I can't stop. Once I stop, the energy from the elixir will directly explode me. I see. This is a little troublesome. With such powerful energy, how can old man get close enough to help you? Senior, I'll send energy to both sides. Just come over. Boom. Boom. Lan Feng changed the direction of his treasured sword and palm, continuously attacking to the sides, leaving a large opening for Chen Hao to attack. This shouldn't be a problem. Chen Hao put his hands behind his back and had the demeanor of a senior expert. The aura and pressure around him were extremely powerful. However, what made Lan Feng anxious was that this guy was slowly approaching him as if he was taking a stroll in the park. It should be known that every minute and every second he had to bear the danger of exploding and the excruciating pain of dying. Senior, I beg you, hurry up. I can't hold on any longer. When the heavens are about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, they must first torment his will, toil his muscles and bones, starve his skin and starve him, and exhaust his body. Travel messes up his actions, so he must endure and gain what he can't. Young man, your talent is not bad, but the most important thing is your wisdom. If you can't even bear this little bit of hardship, how can you do it? But, Senior, I really can't hold on any longer. I beg you, hurry up, hurry up. In order to make room for Chen Hao, Lan Feng had no choice but to vent to both sides. As a result, the speed at which he vented his energy was greatly affected. While he was speaking, his body, especially his lower abdomen and dantian, had been blown up by the wind. Chapter 722. What's the rush? With the old man here, even the king of hell won't be able to take your life. Endure a little longer. When you reach your limit, it won't be too late for the old man to make a move. This is for your own good. It's a rare opportunity to hone your skills. Chen Hao said with his hands behind his back. But, Senior, I can't hold it in. But, I beg you. Lan Feng wished he could crush this old man to death, but he had no choice but to endure the pain and beg Chen Hao. He knew that this was his only chance at survival. If the old man didn't make a move, he would die in less than 2 minutes. Chen Hao walked slowly and finally came close. His expression became more serious as he said, "Relax your mind and open it completely. Don't resist. Otherwise, even the old man won't be able to suppress such a violent energy." Okay. Lan Feng was on the verge of collapse. His face was swollen like a pig's head, and it was difficult for him to speak. All he could do was howl. Chi! Chen Hao finally made his move. His palm glowed brightly as he slapped the space between Lan Feng's eyebrows with lightning speed. Ah! Lan Feng cried out in shock, and his eyes instantly widened to the size of copper bells. He wanted to curse, but unfortunately, his vision went black and he lost consciousness. In that instant, he knew that he was done for. Because, to suppress the energy in his body, he definitely shouldn't have slapped the space between his eyebrows, but his dantian. Good boy. Pa. After sealing Lan Feng's primordial spirit with a slap, Chen Hao laughed proudly. The wrinkles on his face disappeared instantly, and he returned to his original appearance. Then he stuck his palm onto Lan Feng's vital gate and lifted it up like a puppet. The majestic and terrifying medicinal power seemed to have found an outlet. It surged and rolled along Chen Hao's hands, entering his meridians and dantian. Chen Hao ignored it for the time being. He quickly collected the weapons, bags, and equipment of the 4 spirit race cultivators and left the scene. He went to a hidden cave in the mountain stream. After entering the cave, Chen Hao sat down cross-legged and pressed his palms against Lan Feng's vital gate. Chi chi chi. He slowly closed his eyes and focused his mind. The sound of the Grand Tao's chanting resounded in his mind. Reciting the general outline of the Great Tao had long since become Chen Hao's norm when cultivating. What a powerful medicinal effect! In almost an instant, the majestic medicinal power set off monstrous waves in Chen Hao's dantian. If it were not for his strong physical body and the abnormal tempering ability bestowed by the primary outline of the Great Path, Chen Hao would have had to endure immense pain. Even so, this was under the condition that he treated Lan Feng as a furnace. However, there was no doubt that this was exactly what Chen Hao wanted. This fellow has already released so much energy, but this pill has only consumed less than 1% of its energy. This is truly heaven-defying. Who knew how many heavenly treasures and spiritual herbs were needed to refine such a top-tier pill? Even the experts of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm would find it hard to get even one pill. This should be a saint-level spirit pill that can quickly replenish one's spiritual essence. Chen Hao carefully sensed the aura in the medicinal effect. He did not capture any mysterious runes. Obviously, this was not a special pill. However, he had only tempered it a little. Chen Hao had just killed 4 people, and although it seemed simple, he had consumed a lot of spiritual essence to recover to his peak state. This also allowed Chen Hao to deduce the basic function of this pill. I can't waste it. Although this energy is violent, it is extremely pure and high-grade. I have just stepped into the Earth's celestial intermediate stage, and it is just right for me to use it to temper my body. Chen Hao immediately began to devour and temper with all his might. However, he always maintained a perfect degree, so that Lan Feng's body was always on the verge of exploding, and he could slowly absorb it. The most important thing was that he could not waste the medicinal effect. At the same time, he could also give Lan Feng a good opportunity. Chen Hao believed that after being tortured by this violent medicinal effect, Lan Feng's body would definitely have a good harvest. As for his soul and mind, there was nothing he could do. Lan Feng's soul had been suppressed by Chen Hao, and he had fallen into a coma. He could not feel anything at all. Perhaps only Chen Hao, who had a freakish body and tempering speed, could do this. If it were other Earth celestial stage cultivators, no matter how fast they devoured and refined, they would not be able to consume as fast as Lan Feng. In other words, Lan Feng would eventually explode. However, Chen Hao's devouring and refining speed was balanced with the speed at which the medicinal effect was released by the pill. However, as the medicinal effect was released faster and faster, Chen Hao had to devour more quickly to maintain the balance of the energy in Lan Feng's body. This caused Chen Hao to be unable to refine the medicinal effect in Lan Feng's body, and the pain on his body and soul became more and more intense. This made Chen Hao so excited that he started to challenge his own limits. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a situation. Even the heavenly punishment that he had triggered before was very limited. After all, it was only a breakthrough of a small stage, and it was far from the real heavenly punishment that transcended stages. Chi chi. The entire cave dwelling was filled with terrifying energy fluctuations. Originally, Lan Feng's head was swollen like a pig's, but after several hours, Chen Hao himself had become even more swollen than Lan Feng. His entire body had expanded by more than 3 times, and every inch of his skin was stretched out. His blood vessels were clearly visible, as if they would burst at any moment. Even so, Chen Hao continued to expand, unbridled. A day later, Chen Hao had already expanded to 5 times his original size. His entire body was like a round balloon. Lan Feng, on the other hand, was suspended in the air by Chen Hao's 2 hands, which had swelled to several times its original size. If Lan Feng saw this scene, he would be scared silly. Is this still the body of a human? 5 days later, in a pitch-black cavern, Lan Feng woke up slowly. I am not dead yet? So comfortable, so good, so powerful. Am I dreaming? My body and soul should have been destroyed. How can I still be conscious? Lan Feng opened his eyes. But Chen Hao had sealed up the cavern, so there wasn't even a trace of light. Lan Feng opened his eyes and saw nothing but darkness. No, I'm not dead. Senior? In the empty cavern, only Lan Feng's own voice echoed. Ah! Lan Feng stood up, clearly feeling an endless sense of comfort. His essence, energy, and soul were full, and his body was stronger than ever. But, just as he took a step forward in the darkness, he suddenly felt a cold wind. He couldn't help but touch his body, and only then did he discover that he wasn't wearing any clothes. What frightened him even more was that between his legs, there was a cool air. This discovery caused him to cry out in alarm. A wisp of true essence bloomed, illuminating the entire cavern. Lan Feng saw his naked body, and a chill ran down his spine. His face instantly turned pale, and his chrysanthemum tightened. No, I don't feel anything. It can't be. The image of the old man appeared in his mind, and Lan Feng's body trembled. At this moment, he saw the flamboyant handwriting on the cavern wall. Kid, the old man saved your life and gave you a good fortune. So, the old man will accept all your treasures. You're really a talent. Even your underwear is a treasure. Keep up the good work. The old man has high hopes for you. Lan Feng looked at the vigorous handwriting and immediately vomited 3 liters of blood. After howling madly for a while, he slumped to the ground with a bang. He opened his mouth and cried loudly. His cries were so loud that it was as if the world had turned dark. Anger? He couldn't be angry anymore. Vent? Who could he vent on? Would he dare to kill the 4 elites of the spirit race as if they were vegetables? Moreover, just like the message on the wall, it was a reward for saving his life and increasing his strength. But damn it, can you not be so ruthless? At least leave a pair of underwear. Sob, sob, sob. Give me a good fortune? What good fortune? The medicinal power will naturally strengthen my body. Old fart, you have the nerve to say that it was a gift from you? Sob, sob, sob. In this empty cavern, Lan Feng, who was extremely frustrated and aggrieved, no longer cared about his image. He was like a wronged wife, and his eyes were red from crying. However, just as he stared at the handwriting on the wall and cursed, old fart, his eyes suddenly widened, and he stopped crying. The flamboyant handwriting seemed to have been drawn with a single stroke. At first glance, one couldn't feel anything. However, upon closer inspection, one could faintly feel an extremely mysterious immortal sword will. Boom. When Lan Feng channeled his consciousness into the handwriting, there was a sudden boom in his mind. In an instant, it was as if countless brilliant rays of sword light flashed in his mind. Each ray of sword light was filled with boundless immortal sword will. Lan Feng was stunned. If Chen Hao was present, he would definitely be stunned as well. This was because he didn't expect that the message he had casually drawn on the wall with the sword light would actually integrate his sword will, solitary sword technique, and Dao into it naturally. Old fart. No, Senior didn't lie to me. What a terrifying sword will. This immortal aura has already reached a very high level. It has even integrated exquisite sword techniques into the handwriting. Lan Feng wiped away his tears and snot and laughed excitedly. Then, he sat down with his legs crossed and began to comprehend the handwriting. The immortal sword will and the Tao it contained were already priceless treasures. Lan Feng had never heard of the exquisite sword technique it contained. Although Chen Hao had unintentionally left behind some superficial knowledge, there was no doubt that Lan Feng had opened a door to a whole new realm. The benefits would definitely last for a lifetime. How much he could reap from this path would depend entirely on his comprehension ability. Lan Feng stayed here for 3 months and found a set of ordinary Taoist robes that Chen Hao had left for him. This made Lan Feng shed tears of gratitude. When he left, he carefully dug out the entire handwriting on the wall and put it into his empty bag. Chen Hao's figure was like lightning. He shuttled through the mountains with a huge bag on his back. He held a sword in his left hand and a spear in his right. Chapter 723. The Son of Providence. That's awesome. The ancient holy soft armor set is comparable to a supreme holy artifact. 2 middle-grade holy swords and a bunch of spiritual herbs and spiritual fruits. The Gale sword art and the shadowless ethereal palm. Even the Taoist robe and underwear are made of precious materials that can repair themselves. This is much more than what I've gotten from entering the core palace. The 4 cultivators from the Ghost clan also have a lot of good stuff, but it's nothing compared to Lanfeng's. He had only checked Lanfeng's bag when he was about to leave because he wanted to refine the spiritual herbs. He did not expect there to be so many treasures in the bag. When Chen Hao was checking whether Lanfeng had hidden any treasures, he found that the Taoist robe that should have been torn was intact. There was not even a speck of blood or dust on it. When he took a closer look, he realized it was from the ancient times. Wearing the Taoist robe that he had stripped from Lanfeng and washing his underwear several times, Chen Hao was very excited. Although this set of clothes wasn't an offensive or defensive treasure, it was made of precious materials. Especially with its self-repair function, it was really powerful. More importantly, wearing it made Chen Hao feel extremely comfortable. This kind of comfort came from his soul. It should be known that with Chen Hao's current cultivation, ordinary magical treasures wouldn't be able to give him this kind of feeling, especially for an abnormal soul like his. From this, one could see how awesome this set of clothes was. Fortunately, I came out this time. Otherwise, I would have missed this great opportunity. After refining the supreme holy grade spiritual pill, Su Ke, who had just reached the intermediate Earth celestial stage, had completely stabilized his cultivation base. Just this alone was worth it, not to mention that there were so many other treasures. I should be able to reach the nearest forbidden city in half a month. However, I'm afraid the core palace has already been opened. Those treasures and inheritances are nothing to me. Moreover, I'm about to fully comprehend the 6th hex. Chen Hao touched the huge bag behind him and thought to himself. Suddenly he sped up again. The Forbidden City was the best place to comprehend the 9 celestial sealing spells. Anyone who had a chance of obtaining a palace would immediately enter the city to cultivate. Those who knew they did not have the strength to enter any of the palaces would choose to cultivate in the wilderness. In the wilderness, if you were lucky, you could get a decent harvest. Of course, it was impossible for everyone to be as powerful as Lanfeng, the unfortunate child of destiny. Every time he broke through a layer of the 9 restrictions and entered a city, it could be said to be a new starting line. This was because although every Forbidden Area's city had already been opened, all the cultivators were unable to directly enter the core through the gate of time and space like Helian Wuzi and the other 2. Only after the cultivators had obtained all the treasures and inheritances in the core palaces of every Forbidden Area's city would the Forbidden Area's city disappear and the cultivators would be able to enter the next level. Moreover, based on the time spent on the previous few levels, it could be deduced that the 6th level would take at least a year. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Chen Hao was not in a hurry. He spent most of his energy on cultivating and seeking opportunities. It was a pity that Chen Hao, who thought his luck was rather good, was unable to discover the mystic realm hidden in the wilderness. Instead, he encountered many human cultivators. When they saw Chen Hao, they avoided him. This was because Chen Hao would release his aura when he saw these cultivators approaching. He had no interest in hunting people who were too weak, even if they came with a purpose. If he wanted to fish, he had to at least catch a big fish. His bag was already very big. Ordinary things could no longer arouse Chen Hao's interest. He also encountered cultivators from the spirit race several times. At the beginning, Chen Hao stuck to his beliefs. If the other party avoided him, it would be fine. However, if they coveted Chen Hao's exposed divine artifacts, golden spear, and sword as well as the huge bag on his back, then Chen Hao would not be polite. He would kill them without mercy. After a few times, Chen Hao realized that it was completely unnecessary. The spirit race's greed, cold-bloodedness, and savagery seemed to be their innate nature. After testing them 3 times, Chen Hao did not hesitate to kill the spirit race when he saw them. It was a pity that Chen Hao could only discard some ancient spirit artifacts and other items that would be very valuable in the outside world. Only the smaller spirit fruits, elixirs, and other precious items were stuffed by Chen Hao into the bag that was twice his size. Under the celestial ceiling restrictions, the brain dimension and storage items could not be opened at all. This was something that could not be helped. In the middle of the night, in the wilderness, after 3 months, Chen Hao had already passed through 3 forbidden city areas. Carrying a huge bag on his back, he held a spear in one hand and a sword in the other, moving forward at a moderate pace. Every step he took, it was as if he was stepping on a musical note. His entire person looked very heavy, but he gave off an ethereal and elegant aura. Whoosh whoosh, this is so cool. I didn't expect this place to be a holy place for cultivation. Brothers, jump down. This human girl is only at the initial stage of the Earth celestial stage. Her strength is so powerful. She must be a genius of the human race. Whether she has treasures or not, she will get a lot of contribution points. Moreover, she brought us to this strange mystery land. Our pursuit of her for several hours was not in vain. That's right. Leader, we spent so much effort. It was worth it. However, isn't it too easy for her to be killed like this? Don't tell me you are interested in this kind of woman? Leader, I didn't see it before. Now look at her carefully. Her figure is so good. Her real body can't be so ugly. Chen Hao, whose mind was immersed in the laws of the heavenly Tao, heard the specter race's unique and lewd laughter from afar. Soon after, their voices drifted into Chen Hao's ears. A female disciple at the initial stage of the Earth celestial stage? A strange mystery land? Chen Hao frowned slightly. The voice came suddenly. Although it was drifting, Chen Hao felt that it was not far away. It seemed to be only a few thousand feet away. But it was strange that if it was a few thousand feet away, it should not be drifting. As for the strange mystery land mentioned by the Ghost Clan, Chen Hao did not sense it at all. A moment later, his figure suddenly changed. He turned into a strand of light and flew toward the direction of the voice. In the past, Chen Hao might have liked to be a hero saving a beauty. But now, he did not care about it at all. However, since he had encountered such a situation, Chen Hao would definitely not ignore it, especially when it came to the ferocious Ghost Clan. Of course, what was more important was the strange mystery land mentioned by the Ghost Clan. This was what Chen Hao needed the most. For a whole 3 months, Chen Hao had only encountered some very ordinary cave abodes. There were no treasures at all. The cultivation effect was even worse than in the city. Chen Hao carried the enormous bundle on his back as he moved about, nimbly shuttling through the lush mountains and ancient forests like an agile ape. He'd only shuttled through a distance of 1 kilometer when to Chen Hao's surprise, the originally flat terrain suddenly disappeared, and a steep and deep gorge appeared before his eyes. If he had not been attracted by the sound, Chen Hao would not have discovered this marvelous terrain. This valley was circular in shape. It was about 10,000 feet in diameter. It was like a sinkhole in a plain. The cliffs were thousands of feet high, and strange rocks were everywhere. Looking down, the water was sparkling. Even though it was night, he could see the lingering clouds. What was more amazing was that the energy of heaven and earth and the laws of heaven suddenly increased by several times. No wonder it sounded like it was a few thousand feet. Their voices came from the bottom of the valley and were spread to the top by this special terrain. What a good place! Chen Hao's eyes emitted 2 rays of golden light as he looked down at the valley. In an instant, he locked onto the figures of more than 10 Ghost Clan cultivators. These people were standing on the only flat ground at the bottom of the valley. In front of them was a lake that occupied almost the entire valley. Chen Hao looked down from above and could not see the whole picture. He did not know what was at the bottom of the valley. Similarly, he did not see the so-called human female cultivator. There shouldn't be any traps in the lake. Let's chase after them. The ancient cave abode should be inside. Just as Chen Hao did not understand why the Ghost Clan cultivators were not moving, the leader waved his hand and gave the order. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, all of them were like arrows released from a bow. They increased their speed to the maximum and leaped into the air. Then, Chen Hao could not see their figures. What he heard was the sound of splashing water. Could it be that there is another world below? Chen Hao thought to himself as he used the protruding rocks as leverage to descend rapidly. At this moment, Chen Hao was shocked. His true origin circulated, and he almost fell from a height of 10,000 feet. Then he firmly stuck to a rock. It's so big! Chen Hao was shocked to find that the precipitous cliff was like the neck of a wine jar. As he descended, it suddenly expanded countless times. Chen Hao almost fell straight down. The lake, which was originally only 10,000 feet wide, became 10,000 feet wide. Countless night crystals shone on the walls like stars in the sky, illuminating this wine jar-like underground space. At this moment, the Ghost Clan cultivators had also passed through the lake and rushed into the hollow underground space. Chen Hao took a deep breath, and the true essence within his body began to crazily revolve through his strange meridians. In an instant, his body became as light as a feather, following the walls of the cave. No, it should be said that he was now on the top of the cave. He quickly flew inside, directly crossing the lake from the top of the cave and landing. What a magical place! The spiritual qi of heaven and earth and the heavenly Tao laws here are stronger than those in the core palace. Little girl, still want to run? Stop obediently and revert to your true form. If you can satisfy me, I might even take you in as a slave. At the very least, I'll let my brothers have some fun and let you die in pleasure. Tiskkidu leader, the more I look at her figure, the better. If you take her in as a slave, kik. Don't worry, if I take her in as a slave, I'll just give you a good time. The human female cultivator was covered in blood. Her originally loose Taoist robe, after being soaked by the lake water, clung tightly to her body, revealing her lithe and exquisite figure without a doubt. At this moment, she was already severely injured, and she was forced into a corner of the underground cave by more than 10 Spirit Clan cultivators. Chapter 724. In this blind spot was a red and gold circular door. The door was covered with complicated runes and exuded a mysterious and ancient aura. Fresh blood, wet footprints, and a thick layer of dust on the ground. It was obvious that no one had set foot in this place for many years. Unfortunately, the female human cultivator could not open the door at all. When she tried to force it open, she was injured by the protective light emitted by the golden door. Her injuries worsened, and she glared angrily at the dozen or so Earth Celestial Realm cultivators who were spouting obscenities. She trembled as she held her sword horizontally in front of her chest. Drip, drip, drip. Blood gushed out from the wound between her thumb and index finger once more as the young girl forcefully circulated her energy, and it flowed down along the sword. Suddenly, a mysterious aura surged from the girl's body. Her originally ordinary face disappeared. Perhaps because she had lost too much blood, she was extremely pale, but her beautiful little face appeared in front of everyone's eyes. She looked to be at most 15 or 16 years old. She was still young and did not match her curvy figure at all. Beautiful! She is indeed a rare beauty. Little girl, how old are you? I can tell you now that from now on, you are my maid. Dream on. All of you must die. The young girl's voice was young but pleasant to the ears. Her clear eyes suddenly looked behind the dozen spirit cultivators. Eldest senior brother, are you still not going to make a move? Chen Hao was slightly shocked. Had this little girl discovered him? But the direction she was looking at was not the place where he was hiding. Little girl, I used this trick when I was in diapers. You little girl. Do you know the danger now? Just as Chen Hao was about to reveal himself and the cultivators of the spirit race were still mocking the young lady for her scaring tactics, a doting voice drifted over. Regardless of whether it was the cultivators of the spirit race or Chen Hao, all of them were taken aback. Who is it? Come out with me. The leader of the spirit cultivators shouted angrily. Immediately, the dozen of them disappeared into thin air. Apparently, they had used the innate ability of the spirit cultivators. Rumble! With a loud explosion, the leader of the spirit clan, who had just concealed himself, flew out from the girl's sight. His blood stained the air, and he did not even have the chance to scream before he fell to the ground with a plop, turning into a corpse. You're the little girl. She was already 16. You're only 17. The young girl stared at the figure in front of her with dissatisfaction. Her pale little face shone with a blush. What? Let's go, smelly senior brother, don't let them escape. The young girl reminded him with bright eyes. If you can't run, are you still going to force yourself in the future? The young man, who left the crowd with only his back view, did not seem to care about the Spirit Clan at all. He did not even look at them as he casually flicked his finger several times. However, every time he flicked his finger, a Spirit Clan cultivator would fall to the ground like a dead pig. There was a ghastly bloody hole in the center of their brows. If you keep talking, I'm going to ignore you. The young man didn't seem to move much, but he emitted a bright green light that enveloped the heavily injured girl. A majestic aura of life spread out, and the girl immediately sat cross-legged with a comfortable smile on her face. So powerful, Chen Hao, who was hiding in the distance, was dumbfounded. From the beginning to the end, he did not sense the presence of the young man. Until now, he had not even seen the young man's face. However, more than 10 Spirit Clan cultivators were killed just like that. It was easier than stepping on a few ants. He must be a top expert in the heavenly immortal realm? No matter how confident Chen Hao was, he knew that he was no match for this young man. At best, he was slightly better than these Spirit Clan cultivators, but he could not escape death. 16, 17. When did the human race have such a monster? I've seen the overall combat strength ranking. It's impossible that I don't have any impression of him. Fortunately, I wasn't discovered. Chen Hao had even restrained his soul perception to avoid alerting the young man. Although he was not an enemy, he had to be cautious. The young man was too powerful, so powerful that Chen Hao did not have the slightest chance of winning. Even if he was a heavenly immortal, Chen Hao did not think that he could do so. Moreover, he was under the 9 restrictions of immortal sealing. Chen Hao did not move at all. It was as if he had turned into a statue. He was waiting for an opportunity to leave as soon as possible. In just a few breaths, the majestic light of life slowly dissipated. The young girl jumped up lightly. Her young and tender face was as beautiful as a flower. There was not a trace of paleness left on her body. Not even a trace of injury was left on her body. Such a terrifying healing power made Chen Hao dizzy again. He even suspected that this was not real. After the young girl stood up, she looked directly at Chen Hao's hiding place and shouted, "Hey, sneaky kid, come out." Chen Hao's heart skipped a beat. "Junior sister, don't be rude. He was just about to save you." The young man patted the young girl's head and slowly turned to look at Chen Hao's hiding place. He said, "Brother, since you're here, come out. This may be your opportunity. We won't make things difficult for you." Cough, cough. Chen Hao was sweating in his heart. He originally thought that the young man had not discovered him. Now it seemed that his every move was under the young man's control. Even the young girl seemed to have discovered him long ago. However, what puzzled Chen Hao was that he did not understand the young man's words. But at this time, he could no longer hide. Carrying a huge bag, holding a golden spear and a treasured sword, he walked out lightly. At this time, Chen Hao had already seen the young man's appearance clearly. He was only 16 or 17 years old, and his hair might not even be fully grown yet. However, Chen Hao could not really treat him as a young boy. The young man was not very handsome, but like the young girl, every inch of his skin was perfect and flawless, emitting a sparkling luster. His whole body exuded an aura that Chen Hao had never sensed from anyone before. The blood qi is so heavy. The young girl frowned and stared at Chen Hao. Her clear eyes seemed to see through Chen Hao. "Although the blood qi is heavy, your beer is untainted. It's fine." The young man smiled and stared at Chen Hao. "There's so much food." Chen Hao's heart skipped a beat. Especially when he saw that the young girl's eyes were looking at the huge bag behind him, Chen Hao felt a little uneasy. If these two people wanted to rob him, he really would not be able to do anything. He would definitely become the second Lan Feng. Greedy. It won't do you any good, but it's a spiritual medicine for him. I just want to eat. Hey, What's your name? The young girl asked first. Chen Hao. How should I address the two of you? Chen Hao cupped his fists and said in a deep voice. Since he had reached this point, Chen Hao had nothing to worry about. At worst, he could just leave naked. If the young man wanted to kill him, even if he could struggle a little, it would be useless. But now, the young man's expression did not show any hostility. My name is. Senior brother, what are we called? We don't have names. The young girl and the young man's words confused Chen Hao, but he could tell that the two of them were not lying. This meant that the two of them were not human cultivators at all. The young man also said that the spirit fruit was useless to the young girl. Chen Hao did not understand and could not figure it out. The spirit fruit in his bag would be priceless spiritual medicine in the outside world. How could it be useless to cultivators? Don't worry about what we are called. Can you give me the spirit fruit in here? I'll give you something in exchange. This? Although Chen Hao was reluctant, and he was certain that this deal was unfair, he still agreed. The situation was compelling. If he hadn't seen the young man's heaven-defying cultivation, he would have let it go. But since he had seen it, no matter how unwilling Chen Hao was, he could only give in. Otherwise, he would be an idiot. Besides, although the young man said that the spirit fruit was useless to the young girl, Chen Hao noticed that when he agreed, the seemingly aloof young man also swallowed his saliva. Senior brother, I'll go get it. Brother Chen Hao, wait. After the young man finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared without a trace. In front of him, Chen Hao did not feel any energy fluctuation. It was as if the young man did not exist at all. He just disappeared into thin air. What a strong cultivation! Chen Hao could not help but praise. Of course, my senior brother is amazing. But 2 years later, I'll be just as powerful. Chen Hao, give me the spirit fruit first. There's nothing to eat within 100,000 miles. I've been hungry for a long time. 2 years? You'll be as powerful as your senior brother? Chen Hao said in surprise. As he spoke, he removed the bag on his body and took out a few spirit fruits and passed them to the young girl. Of course, my senior apprentice brother was born a year earlier than me. 2 years later, I'll be able to become Dao companions with my senior apprentice brother at the age of 18. We'll share our divine abilities. Don't be fooled by how strong my senior apprentice brother is. Are you humans? Chen Hao could not help but ask. Humans? I don't know what you're talking about. As the young girl said that, she happily ate the spirit fruit. That look made Chen Hao feel as if he was looking at Long Ting. That, aren't you the cultivators from the top 10 clans who entered the primitive mystic realm this time? What top 10 clans in the primitive mystic realm? Show me your memories. If not, I don't know what you're talking about. My senior brother and I were born from Master. Although we have many inherited memories, we don't have what you're talking about. That won't do. Everyone has their own privacy. How can I casually show you my memories? Chen Hao realized that this little girl was completely ignorant of worldly affairs. She didn't understand the ways of the world at all. She was frighteningly naive. In reality, even his senior brother, who appeared mature on the surface, was only mature on the surface. Otherwise, he would not have acted like he wanted to eat the spirit fruit too. But there was one thing. Both of them were extremely pure in their hearts. Therefore, Chen Hao was not worried about anything and said deliberately, "Oh, if that's the case, then it's too slow to communicate with each other. Condense it into a message for me, or I'll trade with you. You look at mine and I'll look at yours. Is that okay?" Chapter 725. Where does your senior brother go to get things? Chen Hao did not directly agree, but asked instead. Go to our cave residence. It's about 40,000 miles away and we'll be back soon. Do you want to exchange? I have a lot of inherited memories. When my senior brother comes back, he will definitely not allow me to do so. If you want to exchange, hurry up. Cough cough. You all grew up here? Yes, we were born in this cave residence, but our range of activity is only 100,000 miles around here. When I turn 18 and become Dao companions with my senior brother, we can leave this place. After exchanging memories, you will know. Do you want to exchange with me? The young girl's eyes were filled with anticipation as she said. From birth until now, there was only 100,000 miles of space. Other than the inherited memories, she knew nothing about the outside world, just like a bird in a cage. The young girl was very eager to understand more about the outside world from Chenhao's memories. If her senior brother was here, he would definitely not allow this kind of thinking. Therefore, when Chenhao changed the topic twice, she changed it back. Otherwise, when her senior brother came back, it would not be good. Okay, let's exchange. Yes, when my senior brother comes back, please don't say anything. The young girl said as a ray of light slowly rose from between her eyebrows, spreading towards the space between Chenhao's eyebrows. Mind-opening. In this cruel world of cultivation, only the people closest to each other dared to connect their minds and let their memories, through this connection, quickly flow into the other person's mind. If someone had bad intentions, it could easily cause serious damage to the soul. But the young girl was the first to release her memories without any ulterior motives. Chenhao's mind moved, and a bright ray of light blossomed from between his eyebrows, instantly merging with the young girl's ray of light. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Immediately after, Chenhao operated the boundless memories in his mind, and as they appeared between his eyebrows at an extremely high speed, the young girl's memories also began to surge and merge into Chenhao's mind. For a brief moment, Chenhao was both shocked and speechless. At the same time, he felt a little guilty. He was shocked by how amazing this girl's birth was, as well as the countless inherited memories from the ancient times. These were all things that he had never even thought about. What was even more shocking was the concept of the universe in the girl's mind, as well as some inherited memories of the infinite starry sky, the universe, and the planes. It was a complicated plane map of the universe, the positions of each universe, and the countless stars in each universe. The amount of information was so huge that Chenhao didn't even have time to look at it. He could only swallow it and copy it in his mind. What made Chenhao speechless was that the girl didn't have the slightest filter of her memories and presented them to him directly. As for the guilt, it was naturally because although Chenhao had completely opened his mind, he had filtered out many memories that he did not want the girl to see. For example, some memories that were not suitable for children, memories about Earth, his birth, memories about the old god, treasure-seeking sword spirit, techniques, and so on. Hiss. After a short 2 minutes, the passage between their eyebrows was cut off. What an exciting world! The girl said excitedly. Chenhao, when I turn 18, my senior brother and I will find you, okay? Sure. It's only 2 years. As long as you go to the core area of the 9 restrictions of Immortal Sealing to find me, you will definitely find me, Chenhao said without hesitation. At this moment, he already knew what kind of existence the girl and her senior brother were. They were existences that were more powerful than the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong was a spiritual intelligence born from a celestial stone. The girl and her senior brother were both born from heaven and earth, but her spiritual intelligence was her master's life imprint. First, there were inherited memory fragments, then spiritual intelligence. After a long time, she was born with an immortal spiritual body. What was even more amazing was that one was the extreme yin of heaven and earth, while the other was the extreme yang of heaven and earth. Once the girl turned 18 and became an adult, her yin and yang with her senior brother would merge, and she would directly become a sky immortal. Moreover, this sky immortal would not be a sky immortal from the vast universe galaxy, but a sky immortal with the highest combat power before the collapse of the primitive mystery land. Chenhao really wanted to know the girl's unique skill inheritance. Unfortunately, although the girl did not keep it from him, the girl's inherited memory would continue to be unlocked as her cultivation level increased. Her senior brother is only at the peak of the later stage of the Earth's celestial stage, but he is already so powerful. If he becomes a sky immortal in 2 years, he will be comparable to Daoyuo Jingxian from the vast universe galaxy. This is too heaven-defying. Compared to them, my talent is nothing. Their master must have deduced the collapse of the universe. That's why he could use the supreme divine power to pass down the supreme divine power. What kind of realm does he have to be in to have such a great divine power? Chen Hao did not dare to imagine. Fortunately, both of them had a pure heart and were born with kindness. Otherwise, if they were evil, no one would be able to stop their growth. Phew. I am me, why should I be discouraged? I have found my Tao. It's just a matter of time. I will not lose to anyone. Chen Hao, what are you thinking about? Give me some more spiritual fruits? Okay, they are all yours. Eat as much as you want. Ha, you are really good. Although you have hidden a lot of memories. Cough, cough, some of them are personal secrets. Of course, I can't show you, Chen Hao said awkwardly. Your spiritual altar is very powerful, even more powerful than my senior brother's. Also, you're very small. Also, there is a powerful existence in your mind that is guarding your soul. You have so many secrets. Azure Planet. Master's Universe, I think there is one. It's so magical. The girl continued. How did you know? Chen Hao's eyes widened. He was shocked beyond words. Brother Chen Hao, you have been fooled. At this moment, the young man suddenly appeared. Junior sister, you are always fooling around. Why don't you come out? Come out? You're in my mind? Chen Hao was instantly shocked, and his hair stood on end as he stared at the young girl. Brother Chen Hao, please don't blame her. Junior sister is young and ignorant. There was a problem when she awakened her spiritual intelligence. I am sorry. Junior sister, if you don't come out, I will seal you for 100 years. The young man seemed to be really angry. As he spoke, a mysterious rune appeared in his hand. I don't have any evil intentions. Why are you being so fierce? Chen Hao did not feel anything. A ray of light flew out from between his eyebrows and disappeared into the girl's forehead. Apologize. The young man said sternly. Forget it, forget it. It doesn't matter if you know. It was an exchange of memories. I hid it first. Chen Hao was shocked by the girl's terrifying ability. But since things had come to this, he could only pretend to be magnanimous. After all, the girl did share her memories and neither of them had any evil intentions. If the young man did not say it, he would not have known. Apologize. The young man waved his hand at Chen Hao and said sternly while still glaring at his junior sister. I am sorry, Chen Hao. I was just curious about what you were hiding. Don't be angry. The girl was a little wronged but still said obediently. It's okay. As long as you tell me how you did it, I won't be angry. Chen Hao said after hesitating for a while. At this moment, Chen Hao no longer thought that the girl was simply sharing all her memories with him. To be able to silently sneak into his mind and see the memories that he didn't want her to see, it was really a little too terrifying. Luckily, Chen Hao could feel that although the girl had lied to him, she did not have any evil intentions. Moreover, the young man's attitude towards him was very good. His eyes did not have the slightest bit of the arrogance of an expert. Brother Chen, this is a type of soul healing technique. It can only be used when your soul is connected, when you're not defending, or when you're unconscious. It can explore all the memories in your soul and enter deep into your soul palace. If your soul is heavily injured and you fall into a coma, it can be easily awakened. At the same time, it can also help to heal your soul. Brother Chen Hao, junior sister is naughty. Although she did not have any evil intentions, she has violated your privacy. As compensation, this technique, let my junior sister impart it to you. I hope you don't blame her for being rude. Senior apprentice brother, Chen Hao was only surprised and curious. He didn't blame her. I won't say anything. Seeing her usually doting senior apprentice brother glare at her once more, the girl immediately shut up. She pouted and looked at Chen Hao. Then I must thank you. Chen Hao was shocked, but his words were not polite at all. Even the peak existences of the vast universe galaxy might not necessarily have such an ultimate technique. At the very least, Chen Hao had no idea. Even the 3,000 Great Tao didn't have any records of this. Pass it on to Brother Chen Hao. Oh, hiss! A milky white light shot out from between the girl's eyebrows and floated towards Chen Hao. Chen Hao opened his mind and allowed this light to fuse between his eyebrows. His eyes shined with excitement. Soul healing technique. This was actually a complete set of soul techniques. It included soul tempering, soul force utilization, and soul healing, a complete set. Just by looking through the information in his mind, Chen Hao was able to surpass his expectations. How was this just healing? Chen Hao was sure that with this set of soul techniques, his strength would rise by leaps and bounds. It had to be known that in the vast universe galaxy, as well as the 3,000 great Tao in his mind, there wasn't a single cultivation method or ultimate technique that could directly temper the soul. The only way to strengthen the soul and increase the soul force was to passively withstand pressure, heavenly punishment, illusions, emotions, and so forth. There was also the increase of one's boundary and passively tempering one's soul force. But this brother and sister actually had an ultimate technique that specifically enhanced their soul force. This was simply too shocking. However, as he thought of their backgrounds, this was also a matter of course. Since their master was able to condense a life mark, he naturally had astonishing attainments in the soul. Brother Chen Hao, these are things that I want to exchange for spirit fruits with you. Take a look at how many you can exchange for and give them to my junior apprentice sister. At this time, the youth opened a white jade bottle in his hand. A rich and alluring medicinal fragrance wafted out. This is? Chen Hao had a surprised look on his face. He looked at the 7-colored bean-sized pills in the bottle and asked, "They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."